Hey YouTubers! Welcome, welcome, welcome. Had a little bit of a hiccup there because of some mic issues, but we're back. So, the only thing you missed is we tested, and you can actually go straight to the waterfall before you go to the Sunken Temple. Which hypothetically means you could do the floating castle before you do the Sunken Temple, but I'm not sure how far you could stretch that, so... whatever. So good morning, everyone. I have not said good morning to you yet. Valkorian, Resident Lever, Cord, End, Cobrat, Jason Bauer, SJ. I don't know who that Cloud of the Stars person is. I think he's stalking me everywhere I look. He's in the party. Okay, so... I never remember which way to go first. I'm just gonna guess. I love this song, by the way. Not this one. I love that. I'm just gonna poison you at the last second because screw you. A lot of spite in this game, isn't there? Good morning, Dream Whisperer. Good morning, Potato. And no cookies for me. My throat's still giving me issues. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Sorry. Yeah, I was really distracted by my mic screwing up. I apologize. So Jason Bauer says, here's $5 for every time you're the worst streamer alive. And it's like a $700 donation, which is pretty impressive. So I guess I really am the worst streamer alive, like every year. Even before Twitch even existed, back when it was Justin TV. So I do apologize for being the worst streamer ever, Jason Bauer. And thank you very, very much for the support. And I am putting that to FF7R. Just because that's my rule. If I say it, don't say it out loud, it's not confirmed. Do what you gotta do, Cord. I'll try not to let my mic screw up again. Stupid mic. So the Sunken Shrine goes up and down, like quite a ways. It's one of the largest dungeons in the entire game. At least in terms of floor size. Yeah, this right here, by the way, this is why you have a Black Mage in the party. For when you have 6 or 9 enemies in one bundle. That's why you have the Black Mage in the party right there. So as we're going up first, which I don't remember if that's correct or not, but I guess we'll find out. Yeah, I don't know, Cobrat. I mean, I know a lot of this is based on the original Amano artwork. I mean, I've seen the list. So, okay, one of the things I wanted to talk about is how FF is awesome. Who's with me? Magic's for bosses. No. This is not Breath of Fire 2. Thank God. I was actually telling... What's the worst dungeon in the game, not including the Ice Cave? Earth Cave, honestly. Earth Cave is just blech. So, one of the things I want to talk about while we're just going through this section is the intro to the game. One of the things I've wanted to do for quite some time, actually, is what I call an in-depth intro series. Now, I'll probably never actually get to do that series because I have 700,000 other things to do. But I figured while we're here, we could go ahead and talk about the intros of these games. Now, we were talking about this in Discord. An intro is very vaguely defined because it's sort of a vague terminus point of both story and gameplay. Sometimes it's really obvious what the intro is. For example, the end of the intro to Super Mario Bros. 1 is the end of World 1-4. The end of Super Mario World is after you beat the first world on the Yoshi's Island area. I don't know, we had a bunch of other examples, but the point is, you can always pretty much define an intro, because it's both a narrative and a gameplay point. And I've always said that there are several points of game design that are very, very critical, and one of those is the beginning of the game, the intro. The other is the outro, the final dungeon, finale, last boss. That's all very important as well. And that's another thing I'd like to examine, cross-examine as we go through this series, if you're okay with that. Like what, if you don't mind my asking, Savicom? See you around, Jason Bauer. Have a good day at work, and thank you again. Despite me being the worst streamer ever. FF1's intro is pretty basic. I would say FF1's intro pretty definitively ends when you cross the bridge, leading from Cornelia on the way to Provoca. That seems pretty obvious to me. So let's start with that, because we could debate and argue a lot of the intros throughout the course of the series. So, any alternate thoughts or comments on that one? Thankfully, Shadow Machine is still leveling. Oh yeah, and just as a plug, for those of you not aware or haven't seen it, the Patreon December post is up, so FYI. I know a bunch of you've already posted on it because I've already processed a lot of posts on it, but just making sure everyone's aware of that. I know, right, Dream Whisperer? Nobody? Okay. So I would say that's the end of the intro. So, now in this version specifically, what happens is you start off, you've got a town, a castle, and a dungeon, and that's all you have access to. You're fairly limited in your overall area you can reach. I asked if anybody disagreed with me on where the intro terminus point is for Final Fantasy I, and I said it was at the bridge. Final Fantasy II's is going to be debatable once we get there. Final Fantasy III's it's a little more malleable. FF4 is pretty definitive. FF5 is extremely malleable. I could keep going. Alright, awesome. So what do you think the terminus point is then, Saldir? That's what I thought. I must have missed some. Because there should have been... No, you gotta actually tell me, Saldir. No cheating on this one. I'm not cheating, you can't cheat either. I admit, to go back to Savicom's point for a second, I actually was considering for a while there going ahead and having basically two types of negatives, splitting it into categories. No, I'm pretty much the right level. In fact, I might be a little over-leveled at the moment. I haven't been avoiding any encounters. And, the end, I suppose. I did things a little bit out of order, but otherwise I should be the level I should be at. What do you ask? Getting barraged with emails. Alright, so I was saying, sorry, I'm getting massively distracted here. I don't know why I'm so damn tired. What's wrong with me? Let's put that on you, probably. Or no? Yeah. Put that in the white mage. It's a ribbon. Probably shouldn't have to explain why I'm putting it in the white mage. Maybe if I do this, it'll be easier to concentrate. So... Final Fantasy I's intro is fairly simplistic, but I still think it's worth analyzing, because it still goes along with the whole flow of design thing I mentioned earlier. So, you start off the game, town, castle, dungeon. That's it. You have no access to anything else. You can wander around the overworld. If you do so, you'll find the enemies are all basically the same stat blocks. So, you won't really have any particular issues with surviving if you decide to go roaming. So first of all, that's good. It's already better than Final Fantasy II. Next thing you'll notice is if you go into town, just about everyone there says fairly typical things, but most of it is base-level informative. There's a crisis, we need to find the heroes with the magic orbs, the king is looking for them, blah blah blah. They also mention Garland and a few other things. So basically a very quick and dirty plot dump of exactly where we're starting off at. World is in danger, we need the crystals, Garland is the initial adversary. Okay. Then you go to, now you noticed in this particular game, what, Savicom? Guys, Savicom is insane. In this particular game, the PSP version specifically, if you enter town, you actually cannot leave town without running into an NPC designed to block your path, who will then shove you into a cutscene in the castle where they will explain that Garland has absconded with the princess, and blah blah blah. If you talk to anybody in the castle, they all talk about the next leg of your quest, the very first leg of your quest, dealing with Garland. So keeping the focus primarily, centered in on exactly what's happening now, rather than trying to dump too much "you're going to save the world" on you right off the bat, which I do think is a good thing. Next thing you'll notice right off the bat is it's been brewing for a while, Savicom, but it's okay. I understand now. The next thing you'll notice is if you go through the castle, there's not really any treasure there, and there's not really anything worth looting in the town. You can, however, buy equipment. Now, depending on the edition of Final Fantasy I, changes what you start off equipped with, because sometimes you start off equipped with basically nothing, FF1 NES, and in this version you start off equipped with fairly basic gear, but is still noticeably worse gear than the stuff in town. Anybody even glancing at the equipment shops will immediately notice this. Also, every shop in the game, this is kind of related, every shop in the game has a symbol over the top of it which tells you which type of shop that is. On the off chance you don't know what those symbols mean, simply walking in and talking to the guy will very quickly get across the idea that this is the white magic shop, this is the black magic shop, etc. Each of these shops in the first town are also visually indicative. For example, you have a white mage in the white mage shop, and a black mage in the black mage shop, which on the off chance you don't know what those are shorthand for, you will figure out very quickly by simply seeing them in action. So, what I'm trying to say here is there's actually some surprisingly good tutorialization, especially given that this is in many ways a game designed to be played by people who've never played an RPG before. Buy equipment, buy spells, fight monsters, go defeat a knight, save a princess. All fairly low level and basic stuff, but all stuff that's presented in a way that's fairly logical and smooth. There's also no real way to completely screw yourself over in Final Fantasy I's intro, unlike some other intros we'll get to later. Because even if you make it all the way to the castle, simply walking up there will give you the levels you need to have a decent chance of surviving Garland. I'll get to that in a second. But in addendum to that, as I mentioned earlier, whoa, we're already there, holy crap. I apparently went the wrong way, by which I mean the right way. I hate it when I do that. I do that so many times. So I'm going to pause and finish my thoughts here before we fight Kraken. So, all of the enemies on the initial island are of the same enemy block, which means you're not actually going to have a problem where you might end up accidentally running into, for example, a much higher level enemy, or an enemy which has, invulnerability to whatever you have, or whatever. This already makes this game better in terms of its intro and flow design than Final Fantasy II and Dragon Warrior 1, both of which it is actually surprisingly easy to roam just a little bit too far. In fact, in both cases, it's south and west, funnily enough, and run into substantially higher level enemy blocks, which can get you massively killed. And there's nothing doing that, nothing indicating it, nothing preventing you. It's just, whoops, dead. So, the Garland boss fight. The Garland boss fight is probably the single weakest part of Final Fantasy I's intro. It is piss easy. Now, it is actually designed to be piss easy, but at the same time, I do think that is a bit of a weakness, because it doesn't teach you anything. It is literally the exact same type of encounter as every other trash fight you fought up to that point, except it has more health. That's the only variance. There's nothing special about Garland. Now, in the NES version, there's a bit of logic there, because, frankly, the combat system was so basic in the NES system that most bosses didn't really have anything going for them, There was no real tactics there. In fact, fun fact, FF1, 2, and 3 on the NES, the enemies all ran through a very static, not a script, that's the wrong word. Because FF4 was when they invented script stuff. Me too, actually, Alex, back on the NES. Because I couldn't figure out how to equip stuff either, so exact same thing. That sounds so silly to say that now, doesn't it? There's like a list, and it's like, do this, and then do this, and then do this, and then do this, and then loop. This is how the AI works of FF1, 2, and 3 on the NES. I think they've changed it in future versions, but that's how it was back in the day. So he'll always attack, dance, jump, and then sing, attack, dance, jump, sing, attack, dance, jump, sing. And that's exactly how the AI worked in the older games. It wasn't until FF4 they came up with the scripting system, which they have used in basically every FF since, where they have chances to do things and a bunch of if-then statements. Make sense? So, Garland, he attacks you. And that's it. He's got a little bit more health than a normal mob. I mentioned that is a little bit sucky, mostly because several of the other first bosses at least teach you some very bare-bones level of tactics, whereas Garland teaches you absolutely nothing. Regardless, you defeat Garland, go back to town. You know, you rescue the princess is like, oh, thank God. And there's a little bit of an info dump. This is also when you find out... Yeah, exactly, Beat Nuki. This is also when you find out more about the greater plot, about how the world is rotting, and you need to go restore the crystals, and blah, blah, blah. So we have a little bit more of our scope. They also specifically mentioned Provoca and getting a ship, and that's also mentioned in town. So we have a clear hook for our next arc of our adventure. And the game also goes out of its way to make you feel like you have completed an adventure. Now, this is something unique to Final Fantasy I. None of the other FFs do this, really. Because in FF1, even though there is a plot, and there is, a lot of FF1 is basically doing random quests. You know, random adventures. Like, basically, you could think of each major area you go through as a separate module in a D&D campaign. Okay, we have to defeat the local knight who has stolen the princess. Boop. Okay, we have to rescue the local area from pirates. Boop. Okay, now we have to, do a more extended thing. We need to restore Matoya's site. That means going to the elf lands, then going into the cave, retrieving the crown, defeating Astos, returning the crystal to Matoya, then using the potion she gives to the elf to restore him to sight, which gives us the key. Getting the key takes us to the castle back in Corneria to get the dynamite to open up the area. Like, all of that is basically an adventure leading into an adventure leading into an adventure. And I kind of like that. It's one of the things I like about FF1. I don't think it should be, every game should be like that, but it is a nice little feel to it, a vibe, if you will. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Point being, we get our hooks for the next adventure, then we go across the bridge, and then there's the closest thing to a cutscene that FF1 has as we cross the bridge. That's the intro, in my opinion, to FF1. So, ultimately, pretty good, actually, I would say. Like I said, I think the only flaw is the fact that Garland is pathetic. And I don't just mean in terms of difficulty, because the first boss shouldn't necessarily be that hard, but the first boss should be informative, in my opinion. It should teach you something, either about targeting, or about reactive effects, or about, vulnerabilities, or something. It should teach you some aspect of game design, in my opinion. It's worth noting that FF4, 5, 6, and 7 all do the exact same first boss, which we'll get to later. It's all attack, don't attack, attack, don't attack. Every single one of them has the same tactic. Moving on. So with all that stated, going through the in-depth intros series, I would say FF1's intro is at least above average. It is well designed to encourage people who are into RPGs, or people who have never played an RPG before, to be like, yeah, right? This is how this works. This is what you're getting into. This is how you're supposed to play. This is indicative of such and such and blah, blah. It's not too tutorial heavy. It doesn't hold your hand too much. But it also doesn't smack your hand too hard. And that's an important balance point, in my opinion, when it comes to game design. If I was being generous, Potato, I could say that, yeah, Garland does show off that bosses have more health, because even without equipment, the enemies in the first area generally die to 1 or 2 hits, even if you're level 1 or whatever. Whereas Garland has, I think, like 100 HP, which is not a lot, but it's more than the 7 or 10 that most of the trash enemies have, so there's that. I suppose you could argue, again, if you want to be generous, that Garland gets across the idea of a boss, which I know, again, sounds like a strange statement, but try to keep in mind the era in which this game came out. FF1 NES, I should say, more specifically. The very concept of a boss was still a relatively new concept to video games. Not super new. This wasn't the beginning of that. But I want you to picture people who have never played a video game before who don't know what a boss is, right? Anywho. Non-dungeon bosses in 1? I don't think so. So we have Garland, the pirates. I guess the pirates count, if that counts as a boss. Yeah, FF13's intro kind of sucks. I would agree with that. We'll get there someday. But yeah, so we've got Garland, the pirates, if they count, which would be a town boss. Then we've got the mage things in the cavern. Astos. Well, exactly, Sildir. Let's see, that's the whole point, is that the very definition of an intro is very malleable on purpose. It's not like there's a definitive, once you have reached the point at which the core mechanics have finished being explained to the player, you've ended the intro, because that, now, first of all, it's a silly definition, and second of all, I can name 2 games off the top of my head where that would mean the intro is about 30 hours into the game. So, no. You know? I will admit, however, there are several FFs in particular where the exact intro terminus point is very debatable, because things flow so smoothly that a lot of them have natural endpoints without actually having a conclusive point. You know what I mean? Like, FF9's is easy, you know? But FF5, well, okay, so first you go through the thing, and then you get the jobs, and then you go to town, and then you go through the first dungeon, then you fight the first real boss. That's actually, in my opinion, the terminus point of the intro of FF5 is actually after the Siren fight. That's just my opinion, because it could also be argued to be the end of the actual first boss fight when you get the jobs. You can see why it's a bit debatable. Anyway, FF10, yeah, it's another good example of that. Anyways, so, getting back to my point. I was actually going to answer something specifically about FF1. Ah, right. So, given that the game is designed to, you know, introduce you to RPGs, and given the fact that the intro section is surprisingly well designed, I would like to argue that FF1, PSP, deserves at least an aggregate positive for the fact that it has a very good intro, in my opinion. It's not the best, there are better intros out there, but it is a good intro, in the same general manner that Super Mario Bros. 1's first few stages are very well designed. It's the same mentality. What do you think, guys? We'll talk about the outro later, because we're not there yet. I freaking hope we get there today. We've been kind of taking our time, because I'm not in a super rush here. Let's fight Kraken while we talk about this. You human blast! I would not have thought to see you here. The only real question is it part of an aggregate, or is it just a positive by itself? And that's what I'm debating, because it's not the best intro. I can think of better intros, which would definitively be a positive. Do you really think you can defeat the Fiend of Water in my own domain? Fools! These dark depths shall be your tomb! God, look at his face. Oh yeah, this would definitely be a gameplay positive rather than a story positive. Oh yeah, I can think of plenty of intros that are neutral. Mystic Quest. I can also think of several intros that I think are definitive positives. 7 is a good example of that. Eight's another one of those debatable intros. Does 8's intro end once you finish the first mission, or when you start the first mission? Do you mind? Oh no, he blinded the black mage. That's what I was thinking too, Dream Whisperer. I was thinking that the terminus of the intro to 8 is after you finish the first mission, because okay, so to explain my thought a little bit, and this kind of ties into what Saldir was saying. I'm not ignoring you, Saldir, I swear. The idea here is that an intro is a little bit different than an opening. Now, an opening can be several things, but in game design, it's usually the tutorial. PS2, Cubanization. It's also on the website. In short, when it comes to designing an intro like that... okay, let me rewind a second. Let me use World of Warcraft as the example here. In World of Warcraft, every time you start a new character, there are 2 zones you go through that are generally unique to you. There's some variables there, but just bear with me, okay? There's the tutorial zone, and there's the intro zone. The tutorial zone is piss easy, and is basically just there to introduce you to bare-bones concepts and how to play the game, right? That's like the level 1 to 5 zone. Immediately after the tutorial, every tutorial zone then leads into the actual intro zone. The intro zone is the zone which is up to level 10. The intro zone is what actually kind of really starts to begin the actual game proper. Thus, again, when it comes to game design concepts, I would argue that the tutorial is variant from the intro. Now, that's relevant, because when it comes to some games like these, that's why I make a distinction between opening and intro. Intro is kind of like the end of Act 1 or end of prologue, however you want to define that. So let me use another example. This also ties into what Sildy was talking about. I'm sure some of you have heard of the concept of the cold open. I talk about it constantly on my show. On the off chance you've never heard me talk about that, just to rehash that really quick, the cold open is something that happens at the very beginning of just about every TV show. It's the 30 seconds or 4 minutes of television that basically gives you an idea of what the episode's going to be about, and then it cuts to the title crawl, right? Yeah, TNG does this, DS9 does this, Voyager does this, Enterprise does this, My Little Pony does this, Young Justice did this, Clone Wars does this, Rebels does it. It's an incredibly common concept. And that then determines the distinction between opening and intro. The cold open is there to grab your attention very quickly. The intro is designed to be the actual beginning of the story of the episode proper, and the two do not necessarily have anything to do with each other. I'm debating if I want to go back into the Sunken Shrine and go the other way. Nah, screw it. Who needs it? Let's go to the waterfall. Did I say hi to Valvedrix? Hi, Valvedrix. I wouldn't mind your thoughts on this, because I know you disagree with me on everything about the FFs, so I always like hearing differing opinions. Oh yeah, FF7 has a very definitive cold open, because in FF7 it's like, okay, you start the game, and there's this weird thing, and then there's Eris staring at a thing, and you have no context for any of this. In hindsight, we know what's happening, but it's like, okay, this is she's just staring at this weird Mako stuff, and then that's strange, and then the camera zooms out, and there's this massive city, and then it zooms in on the train, and then the game actually starts. That section right there is the cold open. The actual intro to FF7 can stretch out substantially farther than that. And again, that's how I help to distinguish the difference between an open and an intro. Suddenly there's an edge man. Edge Lord, the edutainer. I shouldn't make fun of that. Okay. Not necessarily Plutonia. So in some television, it does depend on show to show, the cold open is usually there to accomplish two objectives. It is, and this is why I bring up the cold open and the intro concept, because it's relevant to game design as well. It's designed to gain the attention of people who are not fans. You know, in other words, people who are metaphorically or literally flipping through channels. So they want them to stay on that channel and actually keep watching the show. Or it's for people who are already a fan and therefore are someone who is already invested in the show, and it's like, wait a minute. Like, imagine if you saw an intro... I mean, Star Trek is a perfect example of this. Imagine you've seen an intro to a Star Trek episode. And at the very beginning of the episode, all of a sudden Picard jumps out and says, "Oh, I think not," and shoots a phaser and just kills Riker. And he's like, "That'll teach him." And then it cuts to the intro. Cuts to the title crawl. And that's like... okay. Now, if you're new to the show, you're like, "Oh my gosh, why is he shooting him?" If you're old to the show, you're thinking, okay, something's going on, because Picard wouldn't shoot Riker. So is he possessed? Is this part of a ploy? Was Riker actually killed? Probably not, because this is Star Trek. You know, prompting questions like that is one of the hallmarks of a really good cold open. And yeah, Farscape does that all the time, too. You know what? Yeah, if that's true. Any fan of Star Trek could be like, yeah, that's probably a mirror universe situation. Anyways, back to game design. So I actually agree, Valvedrix, that Garland is a pathetic boss. But I think a lot of the other aspects of the intro to FF1 are very well designed. It's very difficult to shoot yourself in the foot in FF1's intro. In fact, I think it's actually impossible, which, like it or not, is probably a good thing. At least for this kind of a game. I like the info. I like the focusing on the local quest. You know, I like the cutscene of us with the castle at our back. Riker did have a beard. Wait. Yeah, the NES version, nah, it's not as much. But I am, of course, specifically referring to the PSP version. So, okay, let's ask this question. Do you think... I think we're all in a degree of agreement here. Do you think the intro to FF1 deserves a positive or a partial positive, an aggregate positive? What do you think, guys? And we'll talk about the finale when we get there. Because the FF series has a very bad habit when it comes to... finales. I hate it when my ear itches. It's the only way to safely itch my ear is to do this. Very gently. But then it itches more, and then I want to be less gentle. Sorry. Yeah, Necron. Cough, cough. And the ending, which was basically unexplained in the English version, but let's not get into that right now. I have to admit, my knee-jerk thought is also to give it a partial positive. Mostly because while it is good, it's not fantastic. I have seen better intros to games. Even FFs. To continue our theme of comparing this game to Breath of Fire 2, Breath of Fire's 2 intro is weird as hell. So, Breath of Fire 2's intro, where it terminates is, of course, as always, debatable. But I would argue that the main obvious terminus point for Breath of Fire 2's intro would be when you drop off Bo at the... or no, I'm sorry, not when you drop off Bo, sorry. When you go and actually rescue Susie. That would be the end point of the intro for me. Because then the plot actually starts in the middle of the night when Kilgore asks Bo to go steal from Trout. Or, excuse me, recover from Trout. Oh my god, this itches. I hate itching. And it's starting to draw blood, so I should probably stop scratching. Ahem. That's an interesting question, Siler. I suppose we'd have to establish... So, as always, we need to establish what is a neutral and what is a positive. Oh god, no, don't kill me now. Please. Okay. We're just gonna unleash on these guys. Like, for example, and we've talked about this many times, you know, at what point is something determined to be, you know, normal, and what point is something determined to be actually good? Ooh, another ribbon. Ooh. I think. I tested it earlier, Velvetrix, sorry. You can't. I actually went here with save states prior to going to the underwater place, and I could talk to him, and he even gave me the item. I'm not sure if we could actually get to the, you know, the Sky Castle, but yeah. Yes to both, Cumanization. Sorry, now I'm just straight up bleeding. God dang it. Hate my ears. Ugh. Okay, so, now I look ridiculous. Also known as a Tuesday. I guess it's a Thursday, whatever. There it is. I knew there was something else I got. I have been waiting. Take this cube, Tiamat, Flying Fortress, please. Do we take age into the game in the count? Yes and no. I don't remember. No, Roboti. And he's destroyed. You? Yes. Get me out of here. So Syldar does bring up a valid question, though. What is normal when it comes to intro design? So now I'm challenging myself to think of an intro that's simply, that I would consider to be a neutral. So you gotta give me a second to think about that. Oh, I know, Dream Whisper. I always get itches, like, right on the edge right here. And it drives me crazy to itch it. Mostly because it looks like I'm picking, but I'm not. I'm just scratching, and I always feel self-conscious when I do this. Like, I'm just itching. God. God dang it. Listen, that Geth deserved to be shot, Cord. For some reason. It's like Cumanization. Cumanization doesn't deserve to be shot, but, you know, it's a good example of what I'm talking about. The being shot and whether you deserve to be or not. Oh my god, yeah. That's definitely blood at that point. Thank you very much, Cumanization. Much appreciate the sub. Thank you. If you happen to know what you'd like to put that towards, as far as increasing priority in a future stream, let me know. And it shall be done. I'm still trying to think of a neutral intro. Help me out, guys. Actually, over here. Nope, didn't think so. $12? God, when the hell does 12's intro end? Because that's another one of those debatable ones. You got it, Cumanization. So noted. So I mentioned Breath of Fire 2 earlier. Breath of Fire's 2 intro is not very well designed game-wise, but is decent story-wise. That might actually determine, you know, a neutral now that I think about it, because most of the intro to Breath of Fire 2 story-wise is, huh? I mean, seriously, think about how Both 2's intro really is, if you have no idea what's going on. Seriously? Okay, fine, whatever. Oh. I have to go back into the sunken temple. I actually forgot about this. Yeah, I didn't go down to get... I was trying to get the Rosetta Stone first. I ended up going the right way by accident. As in the way towards the exit. I thought going up was towards the Rosetta Stone and going down was towards the boss. And obviously I was freaking wrong. So anyways... come on, Laura. I can think of a neutral intro. And so, one of the things that's something that I've been deliberating on, philosophically speaking, is whether or not certain aspects of game design cannot be neutral. They can only be good or bad. It depends on the specific aspect of game design, obviously, but it is something I've been debating off and on lately. What do you guys think? Like an intro, for example. Age of Mythology? That would probably end as soon as you leave Atlanta. I would have, not Atlanta, Atlantis, there we go, Atlantis. That's the name of that place. God, I am tired. What is wrong with me? I mean, I stayed up late working on the theater. Getting all of Thorne's lines done. But you're right, that was a pretty bland intro. But that's an interesting question. Like, I guess my point is, like, for example, when it comes to an intro, wouldn't, by definition, a bland intro be bad? Right? Because, again, an intro serves a very important function in game design. And it really should... basically, an intro has more to do than virtually any other part of the game. It has to introduce you to the game. It has to tutorialize without over-tutorializing, without under-tutorializing. You know, it can't fall into walkthroughitis and it can't fall into hand-holding. It has to give you an idea of how the game plays, as well as how the story goes, assuming the story is relevant. Where's Kraken and Tiamat in 14? Remind me. You can tell I'm tired because I can't think of that off the top of my head. Exactly, we odds. So help me out, and help me think of a neutral intro to a video game. Because I'm not coming up with one. Most of the ideas I'm coming up with are more clearly positive or negative. Either partial or in full. I'm just going to start fast-forwarding through these. Oh no, they'll have to use the better Fiends, Velvetrix. Skyrim's? No, Skyrim's intro is bad. I ripped that intro apart during the lore run, and I stand by my apart ripping. Did he die? God dang it. Mass Effect 1? I know, Velvetrix. Remixing one of the best songs ever made. There's the mermaids. Hi, mermaid. You're saved, I guess. See, the absence of an intro is kind of debatable as well, but you're right. Morrowind does actually... Oh my god. The mermaids turn into sea foam? That's horrifying. Morrowind does have an immensely threadbare intro. Although, as always, it's kind of debatable where that intro ends, but... I haven't played either of those games simultaneously. That's why I haven't responded yet. It's like, One of our friends went to see the world, hasn't returned. I wonder what she's doing now. I hope she's alright. Yeah, she has legs. But yeah, like, Morrowind's intro is either... How can you be underwater? How? How? She's very confused by this. Like, you go through, and it's like, here's the character creation. And here's a bunch of voice acting for... There's only two parts of Morrowind that have a lot of voice acting. The intro and the final boss. Everything else doesn't really have voice acting. Not really, in Morrowind, which is just hilarious to think about. So everyone's voice acting, they teach you... It's a tutorial. It's a full-on tutorial. And then they release you on Seyda-Neen. And then I guess that arguably is the end of the intro when you're let loose into Seyda-Neen. Yeah, I suppose you could argue it's when you get to Balmora, but this is Morrowind. Oh god, I barely remember PoE's intro. I'm also trying to remember Dark Souls' intro. Wait, you're not supposed to go into the tower, but you hear a chiming sound. Interesting. Well, I mean, everything's subjective, Saldir. That's neither here nor there. There's no such thing as an objective review. I've said that for years, and I stand by that statement. There it is. Jeez Louise. Not that I mind the gear or the lore, but god dang. Also, the problem with judging WoW's intro is WoW doesn't have an intro. WoW has 13 intros. Yeah, the Zelda series, we were talking about that one too. Most of the Zelda games have pretty defined intros. Most of them end after you finish the first dungeon. You know, Ocarina is probably the most definitive example there. You go through Ocarina, you go through the Deku Tree, you get the lore dump, you leave, you go out into, and then you talk to Soraya, and then you go outside, and that's the end of the intro right there. Pretty conclusive, I would say. KOTOR 2's intro is huge, because an intro can be large, of course. I've already talked to her. Yeah, Breath of the Wild is when you leave the plateau, because Breath of the Wild's structure is a little different, but effectively it's still there. That's stupid, Weods. Of course you can criticize something subjectively. You can even criticize a subjective opinion. You could look at me and say, Lore, you're an idiot. What's wrong with you? Why do you like FF1? Right. Okay, I'm being facetious, but you can criticize something just because it's subjective. I mean, that's so stupid. Okay, so... save... Yeah, I gotta be completely real. While the story in FF1 is pretty threadbare, this is a breath of fresh air after BoF 2. Like, it's just, BoF 2 was slowly killing my soul. This is like... Which is great, because next I'm playing FF2. Imagine if I went from BoF 2 to FF2. Oh my god. Yeah, KOTOR 2's intro is quite long. Kingdom Hearts 2... So, I will, however, say that a long intro is not necessarily a bad thing. Kingdom Hearts 2. Right? Kingdom Hearts 2's intro is several hours, and covers a fairly substantial chunk of gameplay and story. And either ends once you gain Sora, or once you leave the tower. I kind of agree with Valvidrix on leaving the tower. Oh no, I was responding to Weoud's Saldir. Please stop chewing on me, tigers. I am not tasty. You nice break. She's not here, is she? It's no fun if she's not here. I can't poke fun if she's not here. Whatever. So, okay. So if you asked me to define the intro to a game, I would say you know it when you see it. And of course, it is a debatable and variable thing. As we've already been discussing, there's several instances where we could disagree with each other on what exactly it calls the terminus point of the intro. So it depends on the structure of the game. Not every game has stages, not every game has clear, cutscenes to serve as arcs and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, looks like his summer vacation's over, Blue Wolf Alex. God. Ugh, anyways. I think if we were to try and define an intro... I agree, context very much matters for an intro. I mean, there's a difference between Tetris, Mario Brothers, and Zelda, and FF, right? All of those are fairly substantially different in terms of structure. Excuse me. Oh, God. Get out of the way, thank you. Just a moment, let me see that tablet. Sure thing, Une. This is the Rosetta Stone. This makes it possible to decipher Lufanian. Yes, of course, that's what it was. That makes sense. Here, allow me to express my gratitude by teaching you a whole new language. Wow, he is a fast teacher. Look at that. And now I can speak an entirely new language. Woo! I wish I was that smart in real life. Good God. I will agree Kingdom Hearts 2's intro is actually a little bit lacking on the gameplay axis. I can't be the only person who's fantasized about having the ability to download knowledge into my brain like in the Matrix. Come on. Think about how useful that would be. Like in a utilitarian kind of a way. Anyways, getting off topic. Intros. So if I was to try and define an intro, I would say, again, that Libertas Liber is amazing. That's definitely an important part of an intro. And it's very much... Oh my God, Dream Whisperer. I knew it! Hello, Who Girl. So, context matters. Duh. I would also say that an intro has to establish a clear terminus point of when the story and or gameplay has concluded its initial movements. It's done the initial establishment of either tutorialization or general presentation of mechanics, or of establishment of where the story's going. And on top of that, I would say that, to add one final little qualifier, an intro would be a good point to end a demo of the game at, if you were to release a demo of it. So, to go back to the game we're playing right now, imagine if you were playing a demo that doesn't exist, of FF1, and you could play everything up to the bridge, right? So you would understand how the basics of the story, the basics of the combat, equipping, leveling, blah, 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 all that basic stuff, and you would do your first adventure. Pretty definitive at that point, but again, kind of varies from game to game. I think that's how I would try to define the baseline of an intro. If you put a gun to my head and said, "I'll kill you, princess." Why do they have headaches? Which one, Valatrix? That is... What the hell is that? You know what? I'm about to heal. Let's just kill these people. Oh my god. Yeah, fair enough, Sally. I used the demo comparison on purpose, though, because I can think of a lot of older games where the demo really was the intro. Doom comes to mind immediately. We're the Lufane, descendants of the people that once lived in the clouds. The Sky People. You use a vessel you call an airship. It was built by our ancestors, a man named Sid. Dun, dun, dun. I would have laughed if they said something like, "You look a lot like him." Princess. 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 Anyway, sorry. We have a legend that has been passed down through many generations. According to this legend, 400 years after the fall of civilization in the sky, warriors bearing light will come to save our people. Okay. Hey, Dartrinius. The light bearers, the legend is true. True, it's true. The castle that floats high above the clouds was once the home of our ancestors. The Mirage Tower is the gateway to that castle. We came to believe there was another entity controlling the Four Fiends. To ascertain its location, we sent out 5 warriors, but much time has passed since we heard from them. I hope no harm has befallen them. No, they're bats. Excuse me, they're batty. We placed our last hope in the 5 warriors. It has been said they fell victim to the curse of the fiends and were turned into bats. Oh, okay, you can just tell me outright. We fought a life-and-death struggle with Tiamat, the Fiend of Wind, but our power was not enough, and to this day her lair remains in the castle in the sky, the Flying Fortress, which is not a space station in this version. Before you leave, legendary warriors, take this chime. It'll grant you access to the Mirage Tower. So you're right, we could go to the waterfall, but we could not go to the Sky Tower until we got the Rosetta Stone. Interesting point, though. I wonder, if you went to get the Rosetta Stone, then did the Sky Tower, then defeated Kraken, like if that's a thing you could do. Anyways, Tiamat blocks the power of wind, the source of the Sky People's strength. Oh, damn it, Tiamat. Why are you so evil? "400 years ago, we had built a civilization of the highest order. Even beyond the skies we reached, but that is naught but history now." Hey, so they referenced space briefly. The flying castle floats on a blue sea of stars beyond the sky. Could the mechanical beings our ancestors created still function? Nah. Sky people would pass on their memories from one generation to the next through rituals. But 400 years is a very long time, and those memories have begun to fade. This world is composed of 4 forces. Heart, complaining, Twitter, and porn. Of these, we showed greatest prowess with the power of wind. High in the sky, we set a castle afloat amidst an azure sea of stars. Why is space blue? Oh my god, get out of my way. I was saying, I'm pretty sure you can fight Carrie dead last. I'm almost positive I've seen a speedrun do exactly that on purpose. I know it's not in space. In case some of you aren't aware of what I'm referencing, in the original NES version, the Sky Fortress Palace place, whatever, was literally a space station. Because even going back as far as FF1, they loved doing the sci-fi elements in fantasy thing. Debatably, yes, Slifer, depending on how much you want to connect those. Yes, we're secretly playing the Galactic Empire. Sorry, guys, spoilers. The Lufane definitely built Warmech. I've actually referenced before the theory that Warmech and Omega are actually the same thing. I don't buy that personally. Ignoring the obvious differences between the two, there's the fact that Warmech actually has a backstory. Whoops. That is separate from Omega's backstory. That being said, I do like the idea of there being a The Omega, just like there's The Gilgamesh. But I'm a sucker for continuity, so what do you want from me? That's very cute, Who Girl. Okay, so, I think we've debated this topic quite a bit. I'm going to go with what I was originally thinking, honestly. I'm going to add the intro to the gameplay aggregate we've already been buying here. Building. I don't think Omega in 14 is the Omega. But it could be, because Omega in 14 is from another world. And ended up here basically by accident, and then crash landed, and then they dug him up, and blah blah blah. I'll check in a second, Dream Whisperer. So let's find out if we're at a point where we can buy spells. Oh god, Crazy Norse is dead. I didn't even notice that. When did Crazy Norse die? I always sort of mentally headcanoned that Warmech was designed to defeat Tiamat. And failed. Which is funny, because Warmech is harder than Tiamat. Only you, Cloud of the Stars. Okay, so... Oh, we can go buy spells. Where the hell are the level 7 spells? I actually don't remember. Is that Gaia or Crescent for level 7s? I think it's Crescent. I'll check Crescent. Good morning, Bragwin. God dang it. Well, apparently it's Onrak and Gaia. Is it Gaia first? Because it's easier. Stupid Gaia existing. Alright, what do we got? So we're definitely going to get Kiraja. We'll debate the others. And Blizzaga. Apparently we're not getting Blizzaga. Oh, right, because of course he's lower level. He is just falling behind, bit by bit. Oh god, that's an interesting thought, Savicom. Like maybe, I mean, I love the headcanon idea of Bahamut being involved in, you know, all the Sky People stuff, so I'm with it. Who's the most Sten character in the FF games? Oh, jeez. Other than Edge or Edward. No, that's not true. Because the point of a Sten character isn't just that they suck, but that the game keeps forcing you to use them. I guess Edge would qualify for that, actually. Hey, here's Edge. Use him. Use him! Frickin' Edge. I know. He's useful under the right circumstances. Speedrunning. I think I'll go ahead and grab that spell. Just the hell of it. Okay, so... Honestly, Edge is like the first guy that's occurring to me for being a Sten. I could see Kate Sith, or Kot Shi if you prefer. Just screw us. Yeah, Kot Shi... Kate Sith, sorry, let's call him correctly. Kate Sith is kinda useless gameplay-wise. I think the difference is the game doesn't really shove him in your face like they do with Sten, though. So he's kind of like he's like a half Sten. I should buy items while I'm here. Oh, that's the 8s. Which I'm nowhere near. Yeah, I would agree with that, Blue Wolf Alex. Let's max out those. Let's just max out these while we're here. Max out these. Sten is a character in Breath of Fire 2 who sucks. And in addition to sucking... that's too many. We'll buy a few of those. In addition to sucking, the game basically forces you to use him many times. Either forces or encourages, I should be more clear. But there are several times where the game flat-out forces you to use Sten. And he sucks. He also sucks story-wise. So he sucks story-wise, he sucks gameplay-wise, and the game forces him onto you. So... make of that what you will. No, I thought this was it. I'm trying to remember where the patch is. Oh, here it is. Of course, it's way down here. Yes, Sten is the HM slave. Except when he's the only party member, because screw you. I know, Blue Wolf Alex. I saw that and was like, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah, for those of you who didn't hear, yesterday, BoF 2 was announced for Nintendo for the Switch Online SNES thing. So that was the easy floor. The rest of these are really boring. Yep, time to do a premiere run of Stab! Time to see how my levels are doing. I mean, it'll have built-in rewind and save states, so those will no longer be cheats. It will not have fast forward. Yeah, Mario Maker 2 got a really nice update. I'm nervous now about streaming that game. That game has such good level design, it's scary. Yeah, I'd rather do BoF 1 myself. Because I do remember, and Takoida was kind of backing me up on this, I do remember BoF 1 did several things gameplay-wise better than 2 did. And I'd like to test that for myself, you know. 3, I'd be nervous about 3. I remember 3 as being utterly unforgiving. You know? It does in fact have a campaign mode, Dream Whisperer, but mostly we'd be designing levels. Kind of with you guys, too. Mario Kart Maker. That would be fascinating. Indeed, a Kai world. I'm not sure, Blue Wolf. I don't have access to any of my PSNs right now, other than PS4's PSN, which is awful. Oh, Slifer. So yeah, this is the vampire from, you know, the beginning of the game. Kind of wrecking him now. This is another common thing RPGs do. Introduce a boss that later becomes trash. It's usually done for two reasons. One, it saves on time, you know, development time, because you don't have to design a new enemy. But two, and arguably more importantly, it shows the player how far they've come, which is a nice thing. It's like, yeah, you remember this guy? Well, smash. Outros are extremely important as well. So I usually define an outro into three areas. In fact, you've probably heard me talk about this because we talked about it with Mass Effect 3. In video games, a final boss is part of the outro. Duh. So since we're talking about game design, we'll also mention that. But we've got finale, climax, epilogue. Now, the exact nature of those can vary a bit, but that's the general structure. So the finale is the build-up to the last boss, basically. In almost every video game, that's actually really easy to explain. It's the final dungeon, right? That's really easy to define. World 8 in Mario Brothers, Wily Castle in Mega Man, you know, the Chaos Shrine in Final Fantasy 1. It's always really easy to define the finale in a video game, unlike an intro. The climax is almost invariably the final boss themselves, depending on how many are in that particular game. And then, of course, we have the epilogue, which is usually the ending. So again, an outro is much easier to define when it comes to video game design. Hi, Starscream. Sorry. You caught us in the middle of discussing stuff. But yeah, the Act 5 stuff, right? Bulk on our potions here. We got plenty. Oh my god. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna have her just run. Let him attack. Have him do Thundaga. We'll see how this works out. Well, Starscream, we're in the middle of discussing some stuff. If you'd like to chime in, you're more than welcome to. Because, believe it or not, I actually really like to chat with viewers when streaming. So, a bad outro is really bad in anything in general. Because it's what you had the last. I mean, that's just basic human psychology. It is the most recent thing to now, and therefore is the thing you're most likely to remember when it comes to a game. It's one of the reasons why so many games tend to, you know, nosedive in terms of quality at the end. In people's minds is because the ending was crap, and so they remember the ending more than anything else, right? It's fairly self-explanatory. I could point to Mass Effect 3 on that one, but, I mean, you get the idea. Now, perhaps ironically, it is actually extremely common for video games to have bad outros, to put it bluntly. In fact, we will be discussing that a lot when it comes to this very series. Whoops, wrong button. I mean, FF12 is probably the example of a bad outro, but there are several FFs that just fall apart at the end of the game. And yeah, FF endings are not known for their quality, even amongst the better FFs. Is this where I'm going? Shoot, I don't actually remember. I'm trying to remember where I'm going, this frickin' place. Of course, Blue Alex. Yeah, Sony doesn't make sense to me sometimes. You know what? Die. Yeah, FF1's ending is bad, in my opinion. We're probably going to give it a story negative for the ending. I haven't decided that yet, because we're not there yet. 8's ending... 8's ending is actually pretty good, in my opinion. In fact, I would say 8's outro in general is actually pretty good. The final dungeon, Ultimecia's Castle, is one of the more interesting final dungeons in the FF series, in my opinion. The final boss is garbage. Just ugh. But good good final dungeon, bad final boss, and good ending. So I'd say 8 is better than most. I know good ending is debatable, but whatever. So, the Ultimecia fights are what I would call not good boss design. So the first Ultimecia fight is the same as any other boss fight up until that point in the game. Then you fight Griever, who is the same as any other boss fight up until that point in time. Then you get to the point where you're going up against the fused form, and all of a sudden, and completely out of nowhere, there's a... what do you call it? A stat wall, basically. Well, hope you have some way to live through this kind of a mechanic. Then the actual final form, which is the only one that's decent in terms of game design, in my opinion, because there's an actual mechanic and gimmick to her, where she tries to knock out people and then removes them from the party, and they can be replaced by other people, and blah, 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 blah. So, the actual final fight of FF8 is actually pretty decent. It's the fights leading up to her that are either boring or, in my opinion, actively badly designed. I did, Diesel. I was so pissed at that stupid phase. Use the warp cube to travel beyond the sky. It will take you to the fortress. Well, let's go then. Welcome to the only song in this game I actively don't like. And you can see it is clearly a castle in the sky here, rather than a space station. Very clear. So Necron, gameplay-wise, is decent. It's hard for me to judge Necron because Necron is not difficult. But Necron is at least I'd say an average. Like, in my own terminology, I'd say Necron is neutral. Like, it has several interesting mechanics, but most of them... that's actually not true. I'm actually going to take that back. Has several interesting abilities, but no actual mechanics to it. It's just, hey, so I've got a big status effect hit and a bunch of regular AoE hits and some of the usual damage things. That's it. Why would I say an outro is bad when you did not learn anything from it? I don't know, Saldir. It's okay, if you want to know more about Necron, go pick up the Ultimania. Just gotta push through these. So much money in this game. Potion, that's just an insult at this point. I mean, Necron does make a degree of sense, but I still think Necron was a bad idea story-wise. It would have worked better if Necron had been built up to, rather than, hey! What, like, any BioWare game we had? Well, almost any BioWare game. Jade Empire, Neverwinter Nights, KOTOR. I've heard that theory, Paranoid Android. I don't buy it, personally. Listen, Seymour is the most awesome thing ever, Starscream. And you here... In fact, I'm going to demonstrate that here. Fight him again. Sorry. Oh my god, 2 steps. Okay, I need to know what the game was so I can tell what you're talking about, Saldir. Now, granted, I am extremely tired right now, but the only outros I remember bringing up specifically are Final Fantasy XII as an example of a bad outro, and... I mentioned Dr. Wily's castle. I mentioned the final boss in Zelda. Hello, Mukul. Agreed, Dream Whisperer. I've heard that argument beforehand, and honestly, I don't buy it, personally. I mean, no offense. I do think... what I would have done is I probably would have had there be a voice that just shows up every now and again at certain thematically significant points. And I would make it clear that the voice is kind, you know, benevolent. It's not an evil... Instead, are you sure death is really what you want? You know, basically trying to challenge them, like, no, I must live at various points, and maybe even talking to certain characters as they're dying. Or maybe, like, have a scene where a character is dying and they start talking to something we can't hear, and they're talking to Necron, you know, little stuff like that. Okay, so FF12. So, I don't remember mentioning not learning anything from FF12. So I have no idea what you're talking about that one. But what I do remember about FF12 is that its outro was bad. The reason the outro to FF12 is bad is because they kind of fell apart at the end, which is a very common trend when it comes to these kind of games. In fact, we've reviewed a lot of games where the outro just kind of starts to fall apart in quality rather substantially. So Final Fantasy 12 in particular, I'm trying to think of anything that have to do with not learning anything about the FF12 outro. Why is an Earth Medusa in the Sky Castle? Don't answer that. Yeah, no kidding, Cobra. Sheesh. So good outro in a modern game. God of War 4 comes to mind immediately. I would also add Devil May Cry 5 to that list. And Resident Evil 2 Remake. Actually, a lot of modern games we've been playing were pretty decent. Adamantite. Woo! I don't remember where to take that in this game. Yeah, God of War 4 is a really, really good game, and its outro was phenomenal. Excellent lead up to the final boss. Excellent final boss. Fantastic ending. The only possible downside of it is the fact that it leaves on a to be continued, which can be a bad thing. A mind straight from Outland. Oh, for the FFs in particular. Sorry. Okay, so... So, okay, I'm stalling and just kind of stalling out here because we've got FF15, which, while it has a phenomenal ending, in my opinion, has a crap last dungeon and an awful final boss. So that's a no. We've got FF13-3, awful final boss, doesn't even have a final dungeon, and an awful ending. We've got Final Fantasy 13-2, which, while the rest of that game is actually pretty good, and the last boss is pretty decent, it also suffers from not really having a final dungeon, and has an awful ending. FF13's final dungeon is terrible, arguably one of the worst dungeons in that game, which is saying something. And absolutely abysmally terrible. One of the worst final bosses I've seen in gaming, that's not an exaggeration. And, of course, we have the absolutely terrible ending of FF13. They've got FF12, which, as I just mentioned, is terrible because they were rushed and running out of time at issue, and they started slamming dungeon after dungeon after dungeon, which isn't even well designed. And if we were to just cut it off to the actual outro, the final dungeon sucks. It's actually probably one of the worst final dungeons I've ever seen in gaming, is FF12's. That's not true, of course. Infinity Dungeon is worse. But still, FF12's Final Dungeon, if you could even call it that, is awful. And the final bosses are also kind of boring and bland and disinteresting. I tend to consider Pharos the final dungeon instead of the Sky Fortress 2, but even if we could count the Pharos is not what I would call a good dungeon. It's a slog. And I talked about that last time we were going through it, and we're going to talk about it this time, too. So we're back down to FF10-2 now, which is a game that's over 15 years old at this point, I think. That's how modern we've gotten in answer to your question. So 10-2's final dungeon is actually not bad, but it's basically leaning very heavily on its gimmicks, and that's basically all it's got going for it. It's still decent. Still decent. I'll actually give it that. Final boss is pathetic and awful. And the ending is not an ending I enjoy, to put that as nice as I possibly can. Either of the endings. So we're going back to FF10 now. FF10's final dungeon sucks for reasons I'll get to when we get there. Its final boss is, well, that gets into some debatability, because obviously there's two enemies that could qualify as the final boss of FF10. And the first one's actually a pretty cool fight. And the second one is terrible. Just abso-frickin-lutely terrible. When you have a final boss fight that's named Kai Snow, you'd think Kai Snow would be pretty difficult to defeat. But no, instead Kai Snow, you have to literally go out of your world. Out of your way, excuse me. You have to go out of your way, reading and talking at the same time, in order to die on the final boss fight of 10. That is impressive. So then we're going back to FF9. Hang on, really quick. FF10's ending is good. I actually like FF10's ending a lot. So now we're going back to FF9. This is how far back we're going to get a truly good outro. I think FF9 has a good outro, though. Thank you very much, Kai Snow. Much appreciated as always, sir. Thank you. And I put that towards Outer Worlds. Because 9 has actually, I would consider it a fairly legitimately decent and interesting last dungeon. I like Memoria, and I love the Crystal World. I also like both the Kuja and the Necron fight, at least mechanically. Like, they're not bad. And there's at least some decent stuff there, like I said earlier. And FF9's ending is phenomenal. So, and heart-wrenching, yeah. If you remember, when we streamed it last, I actually couldn't fight tears during that ending, because it was just that impacting. So there you go. The most recent Final Fantasy that has a definitively good outro, in my opinion, is FF9. What year did that game come out? I actually don't remember. Let's say it's 99 or 2000. It's one of the two. Because I was working at a place by then. Yeah, it's been 20 years since we've had a Final Fantasy with a definitively good outro. On all three aspects of the outro. In my opinion, obviously. It's like Strimmer Rage. Strimmer Rage has been awesome for 20 years, but FF has not been awesome for 20 years. There you go. Thank you very, very much, Strimmer Rage. I'm going to sit up a little bit. Much appreciated as always. Thank you, Strimmer Rage. And if you happen to know what you'd like to put that towards for increasing priority on a future stream, just let me know. Honestly, I've suspected that for a long time, Saldir. The Final Fantasy series has a long-standing habit of wanting to reinvent the wheel. Now, don't mistake me. Obviously, doing the same thing over and over and over is bad, too. But I do think there's a middle ground in between trying something new every single frickin' game and doing the same thing every single frickin' game, you know? The FF series has had several very good and legitimately excellent ideas over the course of its run, and they like to throw those ideas out the very next game every time, and have been doing that since 5, basically. Like there's some debatables in that, but that's effectively how far back we have to go. And that goes up to and including 15. I also think, and I know quite a bit about this, I think that several of the Final Fantasy teams simply got too ambitious. Because... Agreed, Salder. Because the Final Fantasy teams, like... 12 is probably the example of this. 12 is, in my opinion, a legitimately great game that falls apart specifically because of the fact that they overreached, you know? They were like, nope. I do agree that Dragon Quest does... Well, see, okay. Dragon Quest is interesting, because Dragon Quest doesn't really vary up the core formula. You could argue that the core formula from 1 to 11 is the same. However, I would argue strongly that Dragon Quest has been refining its game design, even if it hasn't been refining the nature of the game mechanics. I mean, we still have the equivalent of hurt more and heal more, and we still have turn-based battles and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of the specific nuances of the dungeon design, or the nature of the actual construction of the bosses, or how the power progression curve works, or how the the difficulty curve works, and all that stuff has been refined over the years. There's a reason I call Dragon Quest XI the best Dragon Quest game, in my opinion. And a lot of that is on the gameplay side of the axis. As I've said many times, I think there's a good thing to be said about iterative game design. The 4 forces of earth, fire, wind, and water appearing as a mist converging on a single point. The Chaos Shrine. Yeah, no kidding, Final Harmony. Oh my gosh, look, it's the one spot of doom. Or whatever. It's Final Dungeon, let's just call it what it is. Wait, analyzing Tiamat. No known weakness. Dun, dun, dun. I'll tell you what her weakness is. Warmech! Except obviously not. He's a hero. Gonna take pollution down to 0. Sorry. Yeah, sometimes I've had a weird, suspicious feeling that a lot of the FF world building is basically coming from random ideas the writers have, and don't really have the time or ability to fully flesh out. So they just kind of throw them in there. No, I saw it, Mukul. I don't know what MCC means in context, but I know it's a Halo thing. If we ever review 13, because that's not a guaranteed, is... well, that's going to be fun. And that's almost guaranteed to be a net negative to gameplay. Possibly net negative to story, we'll see. I actually don't know. Hello, Dakota. Yeah, to my knowledge, the Master Chief Collection isn't out yet, which is why that's not really on the docket yet. Well, I've never reviewed 13, Starscream, so... wouldn't be the first time my vague memories have actually been wrong about a game. Oh, there it is. So yeah, like I said, MCC is not out yet. When all of it's out, that's when we'll do a run of that. Because that's very funded, I think. I will say FF13 sits in that category of games that I like to think of as cheat to enjoy. Which I also put FF8 in, it's worth noting. FF13 is boring. You know one of my biggest complaints about FF13? For real. Every single encounter in the entire game is the exact same mechanic. Now, I know you could say that about a lot of games, including the one I'm playing right now, but what I mean by that is every single trash and boss in the game is break, damage, break, damage. That's every single enemy. There is no variation from that strategy whatsoever. It's also mandatory, pretty much from the end of the tutorial onwards. There's nothing else. Yeah, I've never reviewed the FFs. That's why we're doing this. That's the ninja weapon. Is this... Yep, okay, this is where I want to go. Yeah, you also can't control the whole party. You also lose the game if lightning dies. I mean, I could mention the corridor thing, but everyone mentions the corridor thing. That's easy. There's also no customization to leveling whatsoever. So that's neat. Just in case. You never know. Let's go and set up a save over there for this. Nope. Just kind of waiting there like, well... Nope. Nope again. I'm gonna run from that one. So. No Warmech today, guys. Sorry. I can't even remember the last time I've encountered Warmech. It is such a rare encounter. I guess that's technically a good thing. The Lich, Merilith, the Kraken. You have defeated 3 fiends and reached my lofty perch. Aren't you lovely looking? More the better. May the image of Tiamat, the wind of fiend, the fiend of wind, God, I can't talk today, be the last to burn in your eyes. She does look cool, I'll give her that. Excuse me. I mean, I kind of predicted that one, Cubanization. FF1 is a game that is more lacking than bad or good. In fact, if anything, there's more positives than I already thought there would be now. So that's a thing that just happened. Hey, Farabi. What's up? I'm not actually underleveled. Shadow Machine is a little underleveled. He's like 2 or 3 levels lower than he should be. But he's not that far behind. Good morning, Final Cloud. Go for it, Salder. This isn't a lore run. It's a review. That's probably gonna kill him. No? Maybe not. That's gonna kill him. Which is great, because that means he's probably not going to get experience from this, so that's always lovely. Whatever. I mean, I didn't need that experience anyways, right? God dang it. This is why I've got a little bit of seesaw effect going on. He keeps dying during bosses and not getting boss exp, and he just keeps falling further and further behind. Which thing? Sorry, Dakota. That's 3 of the fiends so far have deliberately killed him, just to ensure that I don't get experience from it. That's actually pretty impressive. That's an interesting question, though. The experience problem. So there's two aspects to the experience problem. This is true in an inordinate number of RPGs. Problem number 1, if you're downed at the moment the enemy dies, regardless of all other factors, you get no experience. Problem 2, if you're not in the party, you get no experience. Now, there are games that go out of their way to solve these 2 problems. This is not one of them. What do you guys think? Because this is a long-standing thing. Well, to use a direct example, Chrono Trigger, everyone who is not in the party gets half the experience of the people in the party. Let's see. Final Fantasy... I swear there's another FF that does that. Because they're stupid, Salder. Like, that argument doesn't stand. Those people are stupid. If you want to argue moral relativism, you can go ahead and do that if you want to. I don't buy that personally. I never have. Yeah, that's also true. It's not just a problem with the fact that they get no experience. Based on the design of the game in question, they may get nothing specifically because they were not designed well. I hate to once again reference Breath of Fire 2, but Breath of Fire 2 is a good example of that. There are party members who are designed badly, who are just flat out worse than all the other party members in every way. And those party members have a higher chance of dying and thereby getting nothing, and thus staying worse, right? One of the arguments I most commonly hear in favor of the idea of going ahead and not doing the death thing is basically keeping track of how much you did and then giving you experience based on that. Now, that's another variable in equation, but it's something I've heard of a few times. The problem is, in a game like this, that's pretty hard to calculate. And even in an MMO format, which is where that style of experience is often used, that's kind of an aggravation to figure, because it usually doesn't take into account things like healing. Like, for example, I can think of an older MMO where you get experience relative to how much of the total health of the monster you did. So, for example, if the monster has 1,000 health and you did 900 damage, you get 90% of the experience of the monster. Fairly simple. If you were standing back healing the guy who was fighting the monster, you get nothing. And so you can see the flaw in that design already. Final Fantasy Tactics does give you experience based on action, which is not a terrible idea. The only problem with that is leveling in FFT sucks. Just to put that as bluntly as I possibly can. Ugh. I guess I'm going to buy that. I got the money. So let me, for those of you who have not leveled in FFT, let me go ahead and do this. So these are the 3 enemies here. I'm fighting these 3 enemies, okay? So here's what I do. I've got this guy up here, and he's like, attack me, and he defends, or whatever. He uses an item on himself, gains something. This person does, you know, rally, gain some experience. This person does heal, gain some experience. This person does buff, gain some experience. This guy stands here, and then we do this for about an hour, while we just slowly sit here on this same battle. I apparently cannot control my character precisely enough to actually show this off, but we just sit here doing this for an hour. Or more. And that's leveling in Final Fantasy Tactics. I don't know about you guys, I think that sucks. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, you don't have to do that, Lore. Yes, you do. The problem with Final Fantasy Tactics is its leveling curve and its power progression curve are basically designed to do that. If you just fight through battles normally, you will be massively underleveled. Whoops, I meant to buy items in Final Fantasy Tactics. And that's the problem. So, you could make that work. But you'd have to make it so that the gains per action are substantial. So the player isn't basically mandated to just sit there and walk into a corner and cast Summon Creature over and over. Oblivion. It's another game that screws that up, by the way. Yeah, FFT also punishes overleveling, so that's cute. Another reason... I like FFT, but I have many complaints with the game design of that game. Many. By the way, we're going to be playing a skill-raising system next game. I can hardly wait. Hang on, I need to scroll up to see what Saldier said. Okay, that's fair, Saldier, that's fair. But the problem is, if you remove the word evil from my argument stands exactly the same. I get so harsh about this, Saldier, because for many years, like most of my life, I have heard people literally argue that, well, you know, Nazis are only bad because of your perspective, therefore you shouldn't judge Nazis. I've actually heard that argument. And I don't mean like Nazis as in whatever crap you're thinking of nowadays. I'm talking about the Reich during World War II. Death camps. No, the morals change, and you have no right to judge someone because of what you think is evil. And God, I get frickin' sick of that argument. So, forgive me, Saldier, is what I'm trying to say. I do tend to come down really hard on any argument that leans in that direction because it pisses me off, and because I've heard it for decades. Anyways, now, getting back to the point of leveling, what I would like, the way I think that this would work better, personally, and I admit this is kind of my favorite leveling system in general, so imagine for a moment, this is kind of like FF10. For example, imagine if you could... Ow! Imagine if you could... God, this is FF10, now that I'm actually thinking about it. It's just better. Okay, so here's how this works. Oh yeah, where do I turn in the Adamantite? I actually don't remember off the top of my head. There's a smith, and I don't remember where he is. I've already encountered him. I've already talked to him. I just don't remember where he is. Is he the dwarf dude? I think he's the dwarf dude. Yeah, he's the dwarf dude. Okay. Imagine if you fight an encounter, and after defeating the encounter, you gain... Oh, so I guess FF10 doesn't actually do this now that I think about it. You gain exp. And the exp goes into a pool. And you've just got this pool of experience that's just sitting here. It's independent of everything else. It doesn't matter who was alive. It doesn't matter who participated. You just have a pool of exp. But then you spend this exp on a character saying, "Bwong, I want to go ahead and, raise this person's level, or I want to raise this person's stat, or I want to raise this person's, skill proficiency, or whatever," right? A pool of experience that the player can utilize to level that you gain by doing an encounter. That gets rid of the death problem. It gets rid of the not in the party problem. It gets rid of the, falling behind problem. Honestly, yeah, Asheron's Call is exactly what I'm thinking of here. Asheron's Call is the exact thing I'm thinking of. Now, that could lead to misleveling or building yourself into a corner. And that's a valid concern. I do think building yourself into a corner is something that can be fixed by at least 3 other possibilities. First of all, don't use level scaling. It's kind of a duh. Second of all, rather than using... so, in addition to not using level scaling, you could also add a respec. Like the ability to just... respec the thing. Okay, you built yourself in a corner. No, you can refix this. The third and most difficult, but also most optimal way to fix this is to design the game very, very well. Basically, make it so that you can't build yourself into a corner. Make it so that every build is valid to some extent or another. Obviously, some builds are going to be better than others, and that's a whole other ball of wax, but if you try to make it so that there's no such thing as a truly worthless build, which does take very careful game design, then you can't build yourself into a corner, because you're still viable no matter what you do. Is this adamantite? Woo! I'll give you the finest sword you ever wield. Shink! Oh, sorry. I don't have the claws. Alright, so... I suppose that's valid, Sildear. That's a fair statement, and I do try not to use the word evil unless I mean it. You may or may not have noticed that. I only use that word when I frickin' mean it. And, in my opinion, the Dominion are evil. However... if you want, I could just, like I said, you could just remove that word from my utilization, and my argument more or less stands. Because, holy crap. I do agree those words are tossed around. I think a lot of words are tossed around a little bit too much in English. Or in general. I shouldn't even say in English. Words are tossed around too much, the end. Where am I going? I'm going here, last boss. We're actually at the last dungeon. So speaking of which, speaking of outros, it's time to judge the outro of this game, which is about to start. Right here. There was something in the... Oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. Hey, it's the Crazy Horse. There was something indicating that we should go here, if you were remembering. In fact, that was even in the original NES version. There's the guy we saw at the beginning of the game. I think he opens up the optional dungeon. I think. There's actually 5 optional dungeons in this game. I was debating just last night if we should do any of the optional stuff, like the super optional stuff in this series, and I'm still torn on this whole point. Oh! Hang on, guys. It's noon. So I'm going to leave you with this song. Oh, I am not doing Ozma. I am not doing Ozma. I'm not doing Ozma. I'm not doing Penance. I'm not doing Yzmat. I'm probably not doing NUO. I haven't decided on that one yet. But my point being, I'm not doing those bosses specifically because just unlocking them is a colossal, massive chore. Just getting to the point where you can fight them, where you are physically capable of fighting them, is a chore, and that's not happening. Sorry. I'll be right back. I need to put something in the oven. Okay, I'm back. I actually know a few people who like Chocobo Hot and Cold. I'm not one of them, but I do know a few who do. No, I'm not doing Chronodia. Probably. Or am I? Secretly. Totally doing Chronodia. Wait, is that the one in 1 or the one in 2? I don't actually remember which one is which. See, the problem, Saldir, I use the word evil as shorthand instead of saying mass murdering, mass torturing, mass enslaving, self-important, psychopathic, uncaring bastards who casually and effortlessly order the deaths of millions or billions because it's an expedient and also selfish to the point of an extremism. There you go. Or I could just say evil. Herein lies the labyrinth of time, the dominion of he who roams the myriad of eons, the master of time. Transcending time and space, the master now occupies this shrine. Ye who have entered this place undoubtedly possess powers worthy of the honor. No, I don't. However, all you have come to know about how the world works will be put into question here. Devices and puzzles designed to test your mettle abound within the halls of the labyrinth. Because they don't have marriage, Saldir. The miasma drains the power of those out of time, and monsters soon swarm about the weak. Sacrifice an ability to the light of time to buy the time to keep miasma at bay. Only by solving mysteries of each floor can you progress through the labyrinth. Near each device and puzzle there is a tablet. Consult the tablet to activate the floor. Blah, blah, blah. The faster you do this, the harder the bosses. We're not really doing this, by the way. So we'll get rid of the flee command. Yeah, as with many things, it's kind of a... We have 7 minutes to beat the game. We got this, guys. We got this. Okay, so there's 9 chests. One of them is the chest we want. There are 7 fairies who tell us which the right chest is. However, one of the fairies lies. I know, right, Absol? Why would you get rid of fight in this game? Okay, so there's our contradiction. One of those 2 fairies is lying. And it's the other one, so it's the upper left one. Uh-oh. Boss fight, except not really. Nukaga. Did I mention the encounter rate's pretty high in here? Sorry for being redundant. Let's get rid of attack items. That sounds like a good thing to sacrifice. So now we have 3 minutes. 4 minutes, actually. Never get rid of dash in this, by the way. It's the dash and fight are the dumbest things you could get rid of. That'd be funny, Absol, especially since I don't have any. By the way, yes, the time does tick down while you're in combat, if you were wondering. Oh, god damn it, I didn't unlock the... Well, okay, so let's see what happens when we fail. Huh. I thought it would be an instant fail, otherwise I would have been trying. Non-binary difficulty. Color me impressed, actually. Oh, we're out of mana. So you can't come within 3 paces of the dragon. Oh, by the way, we could also sacrifice another command to get more time if we wanted to right now. So that's an option. Jesus! Okay. That was interesting. You know, I'm not really trying here, but I'm actually more impressed with this than I thought I would be. This is kind of neat. No! Let's try that again. Well, this is the super optional dungeon, so this doesn't really count. I might actually be convinced into giving a positive, or at least part of an aggregate positive. What do you guys think? So the gimmick for this particular floor we're in right now is you can't come within 3 steps of a dragon. If the dragon sees you, it counts as a fail. The time gimmick is the normal gimmick. That's just the gimmick. Like that. Or that. Okay, I'm with you, Salder. Us or them. I get it. I'm with it. I should stop fast-forwarding the fights. That's part of what keeps failing me, these. Well, the previous floor was a lot more interesting than this one. Come on, what are you doing? Oh, he's coming back. Run! Yeah, this is straight up Metal Gear Solid stuff here. Excuse me. You know, just for the hell of it, let's just set a stay here. My biggest complaint is I don't actually know where I'm going. I'm just kind of roaming randomly in this place. Oh, and then I died. That's kind of a complaint, too. Wow, those hurt. Jesus. Thankfully, I walked in here with full things, because I was expecting to do the final dungeon, not this place. Oh, come on, that shouldn't count. That shouldn't count. So there's the fight of doom that absolutely wrecked me last time. Let's actually treat this seriously. I just healed. Four buff men want to pump you up. Sorry. See you around, Final Harmony. Okay, so that guy's gone. Let's get a new save in. I'm just curious how far we can push this at this point. Oh, come on! It's like Overseer. I can only push Overseer so far. No! Alright, whatever, I give up. So anyways, that's the super optional dungeon. I actually think it's neat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you, Overseer. Thank you very much. Then I'm going to stab Overseer. Stab. Then I'm going to stab Saldier. Stab. I have no reason for doing that, so I guess that makes me evil. Huh. Then I'm going to put that towards the HD lore run. Send to verify. HD and 3D, there's a bit of a difference there. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to do this. And that puts us up to that. And I guess that's it at the moment. We never finished talking about the penalty for death thing. I can't believe I just did that. I just erased over my save. That's okay, I can just back out of here. I think. I can back out of here, right? Huh. That's probably good enough. Okay, so, now that we're out. Ahem. So yeah, that's one of the optional dungeons. There's actually, you know, it just occurred to me, I should show off the other optional things really quick. Oh, I agree, Saldier. So, one of the things that I feel like a lot of people misunderstand about me, because Lore Reloaded had the same reaction, people seem to think that I am totally pro-Federation. That is not true. I just think the Federation is one of the better options, given the circumstances. What am I doing? I'm going over here. I think, yep, right here. Like, I do think the Federation is a net positive, to put it into such terminology. The stink went away, and look, there is a cave. An optional dungeon, you might say. Lore Reloaded is a bigger YouTuber than I am, who covers ships and sci-fi stuff and Star Trek. And he'll be on my show next Sunday. This coming Sunday, I should say. Okay, so all of a sudden there's undead. What do you mean, Zlote? So, all the chests in here have all been in-battle use items so far, which is interesting. And the enemies are way lower level than us, probably because this is designed to be done after we defeat the Lich, which was quite a while ago. He's going to be the guest for the Lore Week, so that's going to be the Lore Week, is us talking about stuff and answering questions that people have already posed. We're probably going to talk about a lot of Star Trek stuff, if I were to presume. Just random thought. No, Salder, you must ask even more! Yeah, the encounter rate is just... it's not good. That's part of why I wanted to check this out. I actually don't think I've done these on camera, ever. I didn't do them for the lore run because there's no lore here, and there's not really a lot of game design to talk about. It's an optional dungeon that opens up after you beat the 4 fiends. No, each fiend, I should say. Each fiend opens up a dungeon. And then you fight stuff. Imagine doing this without the fast forward button, by the way. Just picture this, if you will. I'd demonstrate, but I'd kind of like to beat this game today. So, you know. I know, crazy, right? There we go. Okay, so. No? Thought we'd made it. I guess not. Oh, here we go. That is the idea, Damashi. We'll see, I suppose. God, I barely need to heal, too. I don't even know where I'm going. Just roaming randomly through the desert here. Hey, a silver apple. This map design is phenomenal, guys. You just don't understand the brilliance that is this map design. You've done well to come this far, but you'll go no further. What? All of a sudden, a boss from FF3. Yeah, even the music's a remix of it. There's a spine there. Can't you see the rib cage? Yeah, this is a good remix. I actually like this. God dang it. I knew that was a mistake, too. Get up. I mean, all that killed me was the instant death attack. Don't proc, don't proc. I got an X potion for my troubles. Woo! Yeah, that's what I thought. I have several, actually, Saldir. What? I can only do one at a time? Really? Really? But yeah, X potion is a full heal. It's just... It's basically an HP elixir. So in other words, yes, only 10 and 13 got sequels for AB. You know, I really wish that no encounters cheat worked, so I could just go test this. So I'm actually curious. Like, what's the reward for doing it 4 times? I just got an X potion, and a bunch of these, you know, cast items, which are whatever. I can kind of do this, but I mean, this is kind of a large dungeon. This is only the easiest and first of the 4 of these. What is the name of this place? Earth Gift Shrine is the name of it, Dream Whisperer. Encounter rates. Dead ends. Can I just go through the trees? No? Look, that anime does not exist. I don't care how much you want Sid's brain in a jar. It doesn't exist. I guess it's not a jar, but whatever, you get the point. No, Paranoid Android, no. There is no anime. All anime has been removed. Just to make sure that that anime never sees the light of day. Sorry guys, anime has just been cancelled. My bad. Jeez, Funnel Cloud sounds terrible. Yes, anime got Thanos. My bad. As we all know, I'm secretly Thanos. I hold on to the glove, you know, just in case. Anyone ever comes after me, I'll just, you know, wipe out half of all life. It's the only way to be safe. That's founder thinking right there. Okay, some people might cause us trouble in the future, so let's control and kill everything. No, the FF5 anime is incredibly non-canon. Like, all joking aside, it really is not canon in any sense of the word. Do you think FF5 has plot issues? Oof. Whoop, too far. That, whoop, that. Does anybody know what you get for doing this place 4 times? Oh no, I'll be killing all life in the universe, Saldir, not just half of it. I mean, duh, right? Well, let's go this way this time. Another FF3 boss. Thank you so much for playing my game. That's what Chaos says at the end. It's like Myron. That's pretty much what Myron does. Is he turns into Mario. It's kind of awesome, really. Thank you very much, Myron. Appreciate the sub as ever, sir. Thank you. You know the question, and I demand an answer. Well, I'm dead. I believe, as you kids say, this music is bangin'. Or boppin', or whatever. God, I don't know. I can't do lingo. What do you want from me? The bosses are the only reward? Seriously? What's the point of... Excuse me, this song is lit. Which I guess makes sense, like it's on fire. I don't know. I don't understand lingo. Yes, hello. This is the bomb, dog. It's mega awesome. It's the bee's knees. Okay, so I've been debating something in my head for the last 2 dungeons. And by the last 2 dungeons, I mean the last 2 runs through of the same dungeon. If you asked me my knee-jerk reaction, I would say not getting experience for, you know, being dead or not being the party is acceptable. Because it's more an aspect of how much they design the rest of the game that would determine whether that's a good or a bad thing, right? Thing is, though, I have to admit, a lot of that is just because that's the norm. And the norm is not necessarily good. I've said that many times. Just because it's normal does not make it acceptable or right. So I've been really challenging my thoughts on this one as I've been pushing through that stupid dungeon. I'm not sure what I think. I was hoping for some thoughts from you guys, and then Syldir started talking about Nazis, because it's Syldir. That's all he talks about, I swear. The curse of the fiends changed us into this form and prevented us from speaking. The light of the crystals has enabled us to speak again. We are the Sky People. We came to the shrine in an attempt to locate the source of this world's ruin. That was 400 years ago. The light of the four we've been seeking. These people have been bats for 400 years? Also, this is the first time they just suddenly mention a time loop all of a sudden. The power of the four fiends was absorbing... The power the four fiends were absorbing from the crystals was being fed back into the altar. Oh my god, I can't talk! The power the four fiends were absorbing from the crystals was being fed into the past by the black crystal. The one distorting the beautiful light of the crystals is the one we've been looking for all along. The true root of all evil lies just ahead. EA? Shine the light of the four crystals on the black crystal. Doing so will open a time portal to this shrine as it existed 2,000 years ago. The light of the four we've been seeking all this time. The light will open the time portal. The portal will transport you 2,000 years into the past to the beginning of the time loop. But I want to switch songs before I talk, because this is an amazing song. Well, no, the time loop itself is pretty stupid. That's part of the problem. We'll get there. This is why I gave a second music positive, by the way. I mean, the music's good in general, but listen to this. Sorry, yes I did, Myron, for FF7R. And I've put it down. Thank you again. Yeah, no, this is a good remix of a good song. I like this song a lot. This is the last dungeon, so we can start judging the outro officially as of now. Before we go any further, though, what? Lives system, okay? Live systems are an artifact of old game design. We've talked about this. There are the occasional games which actually do something with it, but for the most part, live systems are things that people do because it's what people did. Now, I've argued many times that artifacts of game design are not good game design, that there's no excuse just because it's what we used to do, right? Counter rate, I swear to God. So the question then becomes, just because someone is dead is not really an excuse. Someone being dead, not getting money, being what they've always done is not an excuse. Sorry, let me say that more correctly. Now, I will say this. Let me break this into two separate issues here. Because not getting experience because you're out of the party sucks. I think we demonstrated that back in Breath of Fire 2, and we will definitely demonstrate that in Final Fantasy X. There's many things wrong with people not getting experience out of party. It either encourages you to constantly swap characters in order to make sure everyone's keeping up, or, if the game allows you to, pick your favorites and then stick with them, right? And, you know, not even bother. And that sucks, too. So I think that, and given how incredibly easy it is to solve the experience out of party problem, I think that's something that would probably more clearly define as a negative. And I hate to point this out yet again, but Chrono Trigger. I know Chrono Trigger is an amazing game, but it's also a SNES game that came out in 1995. And I bring that up because it shows that the tech existed back in the day to allow for something such as shared party experience out of party. So, That's not related to this, though, because there's only 4 party members in this game, and the next one, and the next one. So that's kind of settled, I think. But the dying thing? I stand by what I said earlier. I think the experience pool idea is a substantially better method of doing this, and of course, would also completely solve the dying issue entirely. Yeah, I know, right, Myron? By the way, I'll see you when we get to FF10 in this run. Oh, I think I unequipped it accidentally during that dungeon when I got stuck in a fast-forward loop. I'll fix that in a minute. Jesus! Yeah, sure, just kill me. Just kill me. That's cool. Jesus Christ. Did I? Yep, nope, I'm still stocked. We're okay, we're okay. Even though it lowers his defense substantially, I'll take the status effect immune thing. Well... on the other hand, he's the one who keeps dying. That's admittedly a related problem, Damashi. Some FFs... I actually talked about that during the Breath of Fire 2 run. Some Final Fantasies... some RPGs in general differ exactly how they do the distribution of experience. Some give you a static amount and split it amongst however many people are alive at the end of combat. Some give you a static amount regardless. And there's a third method which I can't think of right now. So, like, Breath of Fire 2, doesn't matter who's alive. They get the same amount of experience individually, no matter what. In FF6, however, they give you a certain amount of experience which is divided amongst your party members. So, it's actually faster to level with 3 people dead or only 1 person in the party, because they'll be getting quadruple experience. I don't remember how to, Final Cloud, off the top of my head. I know it's in here. And, like, I always give it to my white mage for some reason. Yeah, I guess there's the Final Fantasy Tactics method as well. Which, as I've already explained, is a problem just like it is in Morrowind and Oblivion. Awesome, Myron. Well, I hope to see more of you. If you know what I mean! Sorry, I'm being stupid. Ignore me. Okay, so... However, I'm still arguing this in my head. And the more I argue it, the more I'm trying to think that... I don't actually think it's a negative to have someone not get experience if they're dead. I think it's more negative if the rest of the game is not properly balanced enough that that becomes an issue. And I think it's more of a neutral, because it's not good. And there are much better ways to do leveling and level progression than that, and they just don't. So I guess this is more of a default kind of a situation. So I don't think I'm going to give the game a negative for that, on very careful thought. Yeah, I agree. If the game is, say, FF3, that's much bigger of a problem. Remember, in FF3, you couldn't buy Phoenix Downs. The things I have 94 of in my party right now. That's an issue. If death... So, okay. Penalty for failure is something that game design has to do very particularly. I've talked about this many, many, many times, especially when it comes to an RPG. So penalty of failure is a good thing. But penalty of failure also shouldn't be too harsh unless it's an option or you're going for that. But it also can't be too lenient unless it's an option or you're going for that. It's a massive gradient of gray there. But my point I'm trying to read to is that in an RPG like this, it is so especially this exact one we're playing, it is so easy to fall behind in levels just because you die, which starts a seesaw effect problem as they kind of fall further behind because they keep dying. And it becomes harder for them to live as you start fighting harder stuff and blah, 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 blah. Now, that problem is mitigated by the fact that you can go to town and heal up. You can use a Phoenix Down, or you can use the spell Life. All of those are options that exist in this game to help mitigate that. But again, that's why I bring up FF3, which has basically none of those methods. Like, you want to res someone, go back to town. Imagine someone... Okay, imagine if someone died halfway through a major dungeon in FF3, and the only method you have of rezzing that person is walking all the way out of the dungeon, back to town, and rezzing them. What am I doing? This. Yeah, that's not difficult at that point. That's just arduous. Right? That's also... So, one other thing to actually keep in mind is another thing that matters is how much... So, again, to go to RPGs in particular, how much does your party members matter for things that don't involve actual combat? To use a parallel, imagine for a moment, hear me out, imagine for a moment that you're playing Breath of Fire 2, and if someone is dead, their particular action, you know, their out-of-character action, they can't use it. Think about how many sections where you need Sten to access something, or think about how many times where you want to access, where you want to go through the forests, or, you know, you need to go across water with Jean, or blah, blah, blah. You get the idea, right? In short, that would be even worse, because then, not only do you have the possibility of soft-locking yourself, but you'd also have the problem of having to traipse all the way back to town, just because the guy is dead, and you can no longer progress through the dungeon, period. All of this is me talking out why I think this doesn't deserve a negative in this game. It's not good. I don't think it's a good game design. But I don't think it's actively bad, either. I mean, as you can see, I'm handling the final dungeon relatively well. Hell, I was handling the optional dungeon just fine, too. The only problem there was I just got tired of constantly running into the Metal Gear Solid section. I was like, you know what, I need to get on with this game. So, final dungeon. Outro. This is the final dungeon. We have to defeat Eberron as quickly as we can before he destroys us all. Now, Eberron has grown very powerful, as you can see, so we're going to have a bit of a hard time defeating him. I think we've got this. It's going to be a little rough. We've also, if you've noticed, we've also officially reached the point in time at which the mana of the Black Mage is better used buffing than DPSing. Because melee is king in many Final Fantasy games. Thank you very much, Eberron. Appreciate the sub, sir. Thank you. The fact that 3 of the major bosses in the game killed one of my party members to make sure they didn't get experience right before they died is some crazy luck. Color me shocked, Melkor Blade. I mean, come on. Of course it's going to be better than BoF 2. Although I think BoF 2 will have a better story score. I'm not sure. Depends, because we're about to get to the ending, which, you know, we'll get there. Oh yeah, the original NES version of FF, which I do hope to review someday, is going to get many negatives. So, haste does not stack. However, haste stacks with... haste stacks with temper, and temper stacks infinitely. I could just keep stacking temper forever. Now, Eberron, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Do you know what you'd like to put that sub towards, as far as increasing priority in a future stream? I'll have to save that for later, Takoida. Not right now, though. That's... We'll get there. Thank you very, very much, Bragwin. Stab! Oh, I mean, much obliged and appreciate the sub as ever, ma'am. Thank you. You are awesome as always. Eberron is going to put it towards Link's Awakening, but what's Bragwin going to put it towards? Rimworld, you got it. What is that? It's something hugging a heart, and it's very cute, but I can't tell what it is. Rimworld. There's a game I'm actually looking forward to playing, even though it's really low on the priority list. We'll get there. Will BoF 1 have a better score than BoF 2? BoF 2 has a better story than BoF 1. I can tell you that pretty much right now. I'm not sure about the gameplay. I haven't played BoF 1 in quite a while. We'll see. I'm just going to start fast-forwarding some of these fights. So I came in this way, right? Yep, no, I came in that way. That's funny, Valvatrix. Best song in the game. This label on the soundtrack. Now, hang on a second. I'm pretty sure that I'm right. I think. This is also the best experience in the game, Final Dungeon, which you'd think would make sense, but you'd be surprised how few RPGs have the Final Dungeon be the best experience in the game. That's actually interesting. So you can exit out of here. I don't know if you can leave if you somehow haven't gotten the exit spell. Let's find out. Yes, you can. So you can retreat from the final dungeon. Which I'm actually going to do and refill a little bit. When I review BoF 1, it'll be a pretty good review, because I've only played through BoF 1 twice. Ever. Once in the original SNES, and once with a friend on an emulator much later. So, it'll be very close to a blind run. And that'll be a good way to review that. Yeah, we actually cast exit, and we're 2,000 years in the future. Let's go stock up on items really quick. It sounded the best to me, Salyer. What do you want from me? I'm not looking for Scottish, I'm looking for Dwarvish. Come on, man. You know this. If I wanted Scottish accents, I'd be screwed, because none of us can do a Scottish accent. Okay, so let's stock up on these. Stock up on these. Yeah, that's not Scottish. Got it. Shoot the messenger, because I am the Dominion! Most unique job in FF? Okay. Second most unique job, because calculator is easily the most unique job. So, second most unique job. Like, I'm sorry, calculator is a very unique job. How good or bad it is debatable. But that is an interesting and innovative job that basically no one else does anything even like that. Lol, Bragwin. God, I love this song. So... Outro. So the way this dungeon works by memory is it's actually very large and has very large branches, only one of which actually progresses through the dungeon. Basically, it's dead ends, but even worse than normal. The enemies in here also all hit like trucks, like all of them, and there's usually large packs of them. However, they are also very lucrative. So it kind of helps mitigate the difficulty, because simply walking through here, you will be leveling. As long as you're surviving at all, you are guaranteed to level up in this place. Now that's important, because there are several last dungeons, and dungeons in general, that miss that extremely crucial point. If you're going to have someplace hit like a truck, well, you generally should probably make it so it's rewarding. So as you go through it, it becomes, you know, more tolerable, palatable, etc. Like, this should be getting noticeably easier as we go through, and it is. Just paying attention here. Even those guys, they only killed 2 people. I mean, come on. Those dragons are like the worst enemies in here. Those and the 9 packs of the Dark Knights. Those all suck. Damn. Okay, yep, nope, I'm stuck. I'm gonna look up a map, because I don't feel like being in here more than another hour. How do I get up there? I don't. Oh, well, that would explain it. Okay. That explains it. So I know where I'm supposed to go, and I'm right. I just can't reach there from here. At all. I have to go another route entirely. Go figure. I'm actually a little surprised they didn't add a map, since they did for the FF3 and 4 on the DS. Which I think came out before this. I'm not actually sure about that. But whatever. Should probably heal up a little bit. Random giant room of nothing. Hang on. Well, by logical process of deduction, there's actually only one way we can go now, which is the way I went earlier. So apparently I missed something. Which would not be the first time. God damn it. So what'd I miss? Nothing. Unless that's a door? That might be a door. This would be the first time, Melkor Blade. So, you know, screw you and all that. This is not where I'm at. That's not it either. Is it B2, maybe? So I'm going off of a NES map, because I can't find a PSP map. And apparently it's different. So that's fun. Okay. Hang on, so, just... I am here, yeah, so I should be there, but I'm not. Oh, I'm there! Okay, I see where I am. What the hell? Okay, so... I can't go... Yep, I can't go that way. So now I'm here. Now I know where I am. Now I need to go... there. Oh yeah, this dungeon, by the way, is so much worse than the NES version. If there is one reason I don't want to play this game on the NES for a review, it is this dungeon. And the prep work I'll have to do just to be ready for it. Don't forget buying 99 potions. God. Yeah, that isn't a thing in the NES version, what I just did there. Yeah, you think this is a bad encounter rate? No, 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 no. It's much worse on the NES. Okay, now I... Pretty sure I know where I am now, but I'm going to use the map because screw pride, am I right? Yep, nope, I am right. I don't think so, Dream Whisper. I don't remember him doing so anyways. Will what get a negatives load? Me getting lost? Twice, too, Zillow, but no. I don't think so, but I do think that this is... Honestly, this is basically a very neutral last dungeon for me as I'm actually going through here. It does some things right. Like I said, the experience rate and the reward rate of being in here is pretty high. And you can leave. At least on this version, you can just leave easily and go and recoup, right? You can make multiple treks of this dungeon, and I have a feeling they kind of want you to. On the other hand, the encounter rate's awful, the enemies are brutal. And, as you say, there's not a lot of indication on how you're supposed to go. Like, there's no real pattern to the route through this dungeon. At least in my opinion. Let's go and get a backup save here. Like, all of the... There's a sort of flow to dungeon design, which this dungeon doesn't do at all, basically. There's also one other aspect of the final dungeon we haven't talked about yet, because we haven't hit the first one yet. That's this. Remember me from the beginning of the game? Oh man, that was such fun times. By the way, these are much stronger than their old comparisons. Counterparts, not comparisons. Well, if my headcanon is correct, no, this all makes perfect sense. My headcanon is not correct, so yeah, no, this is just blech. There we go. I was actually tempering my monk this turn, Final Cloud. Just didn't get this cast off in time. So we'll follow right wall for a bit, see how well that works for us. Yeah, you don't get anything from the bosses in here, by the way. Nada. This is a unique method of following. I love this song. I really do. So, round 2. Following right wall was a pretty good idea there, because it led us straight here. Holy crap. So, start buffing, everybody. I always, to answer in full, though, the reason I start buffing the warrior before the monk is because the warrior has a better chance of living. The monk has a tendency to die. Warrior has more health, more armor, more evasion. The monk is a glass cannon, basically. There's a reason my white mage is higher up in the order than the monk is. Still do some damage, as you can see. Technically, yes, Zilok. I don't know how you do it without just grinding your face off, though. Because there's only so many versions of their best equipment in the game, so... Alright, I'll bite Final Cloud. Why would that affect anything? FF1 technically does have rows. To my knowledge, it only affects one thing. The likelihood that you were targeted. I could be wrong. She also had one. What did she spend? Oh, she spent her money on the swords. That makes sense. That makes sense. Never mind. Well, don't forget, Final Cloud. The amount of stat ups you gain is actually randomized in this particular game, just like it is in, say, FF4. So. Whoops. Right wall, which would actually be this way, I think? Yes, here we go. Enemies are getting a little meaner, as you may or may not be able to tell. I actually don't know what this game does differently than the GBA version in terms of core code. I know it has the different dungeons. Hey, what's up? The Black Blade is like, so boring. Thunk. Look at how boring this fight is. Okay, that's actually really bad, because he's my buffer. Without him, this fight's gonna take, like, triple the time, so, let's fix that, shall we? I mean, that makes sense, Valvedrix. Okay, now don't do an AoE Kraken, okay? And don't target the guy in the back. What am I doing? This. Or no, this. Asshole! You realize he has a 1 in 8 chance of targeting him. 1 in 8. And he has done it twice. Almost in a row. God damn it. Okay, he decided not to kill the Black Mage again. Jesus! No, we haven't, Takoida, because that is going to be a relevant topic for future games, especially since 1, 2, 3, and 4 all just kind of distributed the spells all willy-nilly amongst white and black. It wasn't until 5 that they finally came up with the concept that there are other types of magic other than black and white. Now, to be clear, I do like the idea of having more types of magic than black and white. Because duh, right? Healing, damage, and then everything else. Although, whether or not we should go the extreme of 12, which had like green magic, and then red magic, and then like purple magic or whatever. I don't remember all of them. It had a bunch of magics, that's what I'm trying to say. Summoning isn't really a different type of magic, and Geomancy really isn't another type of magic, not until 5. So, no. Someone go stab Absol for me. No, Absol. Only you must be stabbed for the glory of your wife and children. I'm sure they'll be amused by that. Hey, kids, we got a show for you. Hey! Stab, stab, stab. And they, like, join in the stabbing. Then there's blue magic, which is a great idea that is rarely well implemented. Look, I'm just saying, Myron. They all need to die. Everyone's gonna die. Right wall, right wall. Ah! It's too late. Uh-oh, it's the Vampire Lord. Oh, no. You know, I've been wanting to use this spell for a while now. Just for fun. Come on, leave someone alive for me to kill. There we go. Yeah, that's alright, I guess. I've always liked the idea of blue magic, but I think part of the reason is because so many blue spells are really, really good. And that has been true since FF5. 5, of course, has, it has Big Guard and has the level spells and a bunch of situational stuff, which is insane. 6 has Grand Train and Aqua Rake and a few other cool ones. 7 has White Wind, Big Guard, and frankly, you don't need anything else, but it also has Shadow Flare, Pandora's Box, a bunch of other really powerful spells. Also, it has Trine, Flamethrower, which is garbage, of course. I forget the other elemental spells. 7 has like an elemental, each of elemental spells. I forget what all of them are, but anyways. Then we have 8. I don't think I've ever used Quistis's elemental spells in, or blue magic spells in 8. Whoa, hi Tiamat. Jesus. Hi, how are things? It's good to see you. Looking as sexy as always. No, sexy, that's it! I don't think she liked that. Yeah, they're fixed. There's an exact tile in which you fight Lich, Carry, Kraken, and this is going to kill the Black Mage. Oh, it didn't. And Tiamat. The monk was like, hey, baby. And then she killed him. Anyway, so then we had 9. I'm sure there's some good blue magic in 9, but it is such a colossal pain to procure that the only blue magic I've ever used to any effect in 9 is Thousand Needles. So... I know can eat that. 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 I hear that in my nightmares. Anyways, But yeah, so then we have 10. God, I know you basically have to use blue magic in 10, but I don't remember blue magic being worth a damn because it's tied to his limit break, if I'm remembering correctly. Either way, I have no particularly strong memories of blue magic being worth a damn in 10, so... whatever. Haven't actually played a blue mage in 11. Never got that far. "12 doesn't have blue magic, really, does it? Now that I'm thinking about it. I was going to say, 13 doesn't either. 14, of course, does, and funnily enough, it's kind of crap in 14. You know what? Actually, yeah, Kamari is a Sten. Holy God, you're right. Huh. I've never even thought about that before, but you're absolutely right. I think we go up. Memory's telling me to go up. Yep, okay. Yep, we're here. This is the last floor. So this is it. We're at the last boss. As soon as we get through this door. Hey, look, we've got 2 save states here now. So let's heal up a little bit. In the original, this last boss wasn't actually all that rough. I mean, he was kind of rough, but not really. By all memory, they really buffed him in this version, so this should be interesting. Since we're, you know, legit. Well, yeah, he only had 2,000 health in the original NES version, and I could do more than that with 1 hit at the right setup. Okay. So, talking about the outro, again, final dungeon. I don't think it really qualifies as a negative, but I have to admit, while we're sitting here, I've been debating this in my head. How many of you actually watched the FF lore run? The FF lore run, the one from 2 years ago. Not the FF marathon from like 6 years ago. The FF lore run. What? Oh, apparently there's a PAX this weekend. PAX Unplugged. Is that the Australia one? I never remember which one's which. During it, I bashed the hell out of FF2, if you'll remember. But one of the very specific 2 points, there were 2 points I made a point of actually sitting down and showing my work on. One was the overworld design, and one was the dungeon design. FF2's overworld is crap, and we'll cover that later today when we start it after the lunch break. But FF2's dungeon design is actively horrible. Now, I made the point that the dungeon design in 1, while not exactly, good, was nevertheless better than 2's in almost every way, especially given the fact that it actually had some manner of hazards, gimmicks, and otherwise, rather than just, here's a dungeon and also some troll rooms, right? With that mentality in mind, I've been debating if the overall dungeon design in FF1 deserves anything. Positive, negative, neutral, partial negative. What do you guys think? I'm actually pretty curious on this one. You'll notice as soon as I found the path to Lich, I stopped being lost. Because the dungeon design of the Chaos Shrine here is actually pretty smooth once you actually figure out where you're going in the initial. So, I didn't get Mazmiun, though. So, that's the thing I skipped. Not really on purpose, I just didn't stumble into it. Don't be shy, you can share. I mean, I know Zalok has spoken. Final Cloud has spoken. Valvedrix has spoken. Damashi has spoken. I have to admit, this is pretty disappointing for a final dungeon. But at the same time, it's not actively boring, and it's not actively bad, I think. There's a little bit of trolling right at the beginning. But even that is just kind of, The rest of it's pretty serviceable, Personally, I think this is probably a neutral. What do you think, Cord? Everyone, shine the spotlight on Cord. We must make Cord answer us. The 4 boss encounters shouldn't be invisible. I'll agree with that. There's no reason to do that. In fact, the whole game has been doing that. Starting with the first boss in the game. Actually, I guess that's actually the 3rd boss in the game? The one in the Marsh Cave. This is important, though, because, I'm always a little bit more harsh about a final dungeon than I am dungeons in general. Because it's the final dungeon. Yeah, I'll give you the fact that in the original, the tile thing is a tech limitation thing. Totally understandable. There's no excuse in this game. I mean, they literally added cutscenes to this game that didn't exist in the original. It's not like they couldn't have put a sprite, By the way, the invisible tile encounter thing is already part of an aggregate negative, so there's nothing new to add there. I think I am going to go ahead and put this in the aggregate negative. Because basically, a final dungeon that's acceptable is not acceptable to me. And like I said, I hold last dungeons up to a higher standard. And that's all that really boils down to. I did say that in BoF 2. You're right. I did say that in BoF 2 as well. Of course, the Infinity Dungeon was terrible. This has got nothing on Infinity. That'll also finish off that negative aggregate. So we'll go ahead and just codify that. So that's basically everything. I did want to add one other thing here really quick. Actually, no, that's not really part of story, is it? Anybody think there's any story positives I missed before we add what is very likely to be a story negative? Even minor stuff, because we have an aggregate building right now, but it doesn't actually have... Oh my god, Final Cloud. It doesn't actually have enough to really feel like a full aggregate. So does anybody have any potential story aggregate positives they feel that this game deserves? A lot of aggregates in this one. 3 aggregates. Well, you decide on that. Plot twist! Do you remember me? I was once known as a Knight of Cornelia. 2,000 years from now, you killed me. I am Garland. Oh, you did defeat me then, but the four great forces saved me by sending me back through time, which doesn't make sense, because if you think about it, that would mean they sent him back in time after we defeated him, so I'm guessing that healed him at the same time? Just funny, because I don't really think of the four Fiends of Elements being good healers. Once here, I sent the four Fiends into the future, which also doesn't make sense because we just fought the four Fiends, which kind of contradicts that point. By the way, I'm going to be ripping this ending to shreds, just as a FYI. Where they shall once again use the four great forces to send me into the past. In 2,000 years, I will remember none of this. Yeah, because we're going to kill you here. No explanation for why he turns into chaos either. That just kind of happens. The implication is the fact that the four Fiends' evil energy converted him into chaos, but they never say anything about that. Anyways. I will be reborn again here, so even as you die again and again, I shall return, born again into this endless circle I have created, which actually makes no sense whatsoever. And for some reason we're in space, because of course we frickin' are. I know it's kind of a thing that we're supposed to just be in space for the final boss, but usually there's some kind of reason you're in space. Here we're just in the middle of a dungeon, a temple, in the past, all of a sudden we're in space. Whatever. Okay, so let's do this, I'm actually going to pay attention for this, because they buffed the hell out of Chaos. He also has brand new abilities. One for each of the elements. Which I think is really cool, actually. I was literally just thinking, maybe I should buff, the monk this time, instead of just buffing the fighter. Nah, I should probably buff the fighter first. Water damage. I don't even know why I bothered to res. I really don't. We don't even have level 8 spells, I just realized that. Asshole. Temper increases their melee damage, stacking infinitely. Which you probably noticed on, say, the Tiamat fight, where I was doing 2,500 damage, or excuse me, 2,500 damage by the end there. Currently doing 800. Here's the air one. FF12 has a similar thing, but not many games have bravery, is what it's usually called. Some games have Berserk, which I know is kind of a different thing, but it does serve the same function of, buffing your damage substantially. Miss. Miss. Thank you. Yeah, 12 has a lot of good buffs. That's actually one of its better designed things. And yeah, it's probably because of the MMO thing. Notice we're up to 1,500 damage now. you dick. Oh, it missed. Woo! I mean, I could res Crazy Horse. Do you think I should res Crazy Horse for the final boss? What do you think, guys? Next turn, obviously. Next turn. Screw up this turn. Depends on the specific game for Raby, actually. Well, we'll see. We'll try one last res. I'm sorry, I'm just really amused by this. I probably shouldn't be. And now he's going to do the AoE, Earth attack? No, he's going to heal himself to full because he can just do that. Oh, I guess that's not a full heal. It's like a half heal for him. Still, it's going to take me 5 hits to get rid of that. There's the fire attack again. Let's try another res. Thud. What's funny is in some of the FFs, the quad 9 thing is how much damage it can show, but not actually a cap on how much damage you can do. Like FF3 on the NES, for example, you can do more than quad 9 damage, it just doesn't know how to display it, so it doesn't. Just interesting to think about. There. We've outdone his heal now, so we've caught up to the big heal he just did. Yeah, me too, Damashi. This is actually a pretty decent last boss. I will give them that. Nope, 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 nope. Honestly, that's another party style I've thought about over the years, Zilog. Basically, instead of the monk, have a second black mage. Temper. So, temper haste, temper, 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 temper. And just kind of keep that going. Not that any boss in the game, other than the optional bosses and Chaos, can live through that much. Sorry, Garland. So apparently this interrupts the time loop, even though that makes no sense. Near as I could tell, asterisk, the stated canon reason for why we interrupted the time loop is we weren't part of the time loop until Dissidia tossed us into the loop. Which doesn't explain what killed Garland the first or 50th times or whatever, but anyway, I'm getting off topic. The time loop was severed at last. The endless struggle that raged over 2,000 years had ended. And peace prevailed once more. Let's speed this up a little bit. The light of the 4 crystals restored the forces of wind, water, earth, and fire. It was a mere trick of fate that had given rise to the chain of Garland's wrath. Too true, Dream Whisperer. But magnified by the 4 forces meant to guide our world, that trick of fate also gave birth to the Fiends. Oh yeah, the game implies / states outright that the reason the Fiends exist is because Garland invented them after they sent him into the past. Now that's the kind of time loop I could get behind. The Fiends effectively created themselves. Okay, I'm with that. Monsters ran rampant and the world sank into darkness. Probably Final Cloud. But now all that is in the past. With the 4 forces flowing as they were meant, the warriors prepare to cross time and return to the world they know. A world where Princess Sarah, Queen Jane, and even Garland himself await, because they changed history. When was this fateful day that sent time spiraling into a loop? None can say. It seemed the cycle into which time had fallen would last forever. But the bravery of 4 young travelers changed that. They took the forces that filled the world with darkness and used them to bathe the world in light. None will ever recall the struggle the 4 endured, so none of it ever happened, by the way. For the breaking of the chain means that it never existed. Within the tales of fantasy that people tell, the memory of their deeds live on. Tales of dwarves and elves, dragons, and shining civilizations that reach for the heavens even as they fell. And now their return is upon us. Within the memory of their struggle buried deep in their hearts, they will quietly watch over our world. Remember always that the forces of the world must be used as they were intended, that the power of light must never be used for dark, and the true crystals reside in your heart, for you are the warrior who crossed time. You are the bringer of light. So. Not a great last dungeon. Good final boss. I actually like the chaos fight. Negative to story. I know I've been saying this is going to happen for all, but I never decide until we're there. And having rewatched that ending, negative to story. I really actively dislike that ending. And there's 2 big reasons for it. First is the most obvious reason. It doesn't make sense. It actively contradicts itself. As I've said many times, obviously, time travel doesn't exist in real life, but if you're going to establish something like time travel, you need to establish the rules of how it works, which they don't do and then contradict. Second problem, it was all just a dream. It never happened. And it's possible to hit a reset button and have that work. This is not one of those times. The whole game never happened. Congrats! So, negative to story. So, yeah, negative to story. Boop. So here's the problem I'm faced with. And by the way, by contrast, FF8's time travel makes perfect sense. It is much better designed. So we've got that story negative, several story positives, some negative. So I'm pretty sure, I think, hang on. There. Oh, that's true, Absol. We need to buy another copy of this game immediately. So that's going to leave us with a net +3 to gameplay, which, if I'm being completely blunt, is about what I was expecting. So here's the problem I'm facing with the story. I couldn't come up with a story positive for this game. I came up with 2 minor things, but I don't think those add up to a full positive. What do you think I should do, guys? There is a story, such as it is. No, Farabi, there wasn't. I like the adventure tone. I like running around and questing. I like the post-apocalyptic field. I like the idea of the abandoned civilization. But honestly, I don't think that it adds up to a full positive. So, as much as I hate to basically remove that from qualification, I got nothing else to add to that. To put it into mathematical terms, I think we're kind of rounding down here. But I'd rather round down than round up, you know what I mean? That's actually a valid point, Zillow. That's a valid point. So yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that, which means our net score for FF1 is, for FF1 PSP, excuse me, is -1 plus 3. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Honestly, if it wasn't for the ending, it would be a straight 0 on story, which also sounds about right. Let's skip through this really quick here. Yeah, it would be kind of like a Mario game. Executive producer, screw you! Freaking Wada, excuse me. So, the end. Yeah, I mean, whenever we review the original NES version, it will absolutely get a codifier point for really being the thing that dragged JRPGs into the modern era in just about every sense of the word. I mean, don't mistake me, there were JRPGs and RPGs before FF1, but that's why FF1 gets the codifier, not the innovator point. Because FF1 did codify JRPGs. Like it or not. Oh my god. Anyways, so. Next we'll be playing this game. I'm just going to pull that up there. Hey, let's go beat the last boss real quick. There you go. Here's the positive to FF2 right here. This song. So I'm going to go ahead and chop off. Now, I'm having issues, so I'm going to try and lay down for a bit, especially since I got something in the oven right now. I will be back at 3 as per usual, and then we will start FF2. I don't know what to make of this. I'm terrified. I'm terrified. So I'll see you guys next time, guys.